5 minutes later, in the corner of a small alley, Irina held onto a chair as she stared at a helpless forest troll cowering in the corner. She asked in a calm voice, "Spit it out. What do you know? Mamie restaurant is at Aden Square. You can't make it in time for a meal even if you rush over now." "This is all I know," that forest troll felt like crying as he looked at the lady wearing the white gauze hat. He didn't dare to make a move. He was walking on the street, and he was tripped by a chair out of the blue. Then, he was dragged into the alley for questioning. Whom did he offend? Even though he couldn't see this lady's face and she looked thin and frail, that strike with the chair had shown him the real meaning of life. Did he dare to move? He indeed didn't dare to move at all. "All right, you can faint now." Irina stared into that troll's eyes for a while to make sure he had said the truth before she raised the chair in her hand. "Foo *k your mother. Here? It looks rather good. But, why isn't anyone here?" Irina stood at the entrance of Mamie restaurant and looked at the closed restaurant with furrowed eyebrows. There was nobody in the restaurant. "Young lady, you can quit waiting. I don't know where Boss Mag went to fool around today, he even disappeared without announcing his leave. If you want to eat something, come earlier to line up tonight. The opening hours are over now," an old man, who was sitting on a bench and sunbathing, reminded Irina kindly with a slightly discontented voice. He had lined up for over half an hour for lunch, and yet he had only eaten 2 beef kebabs. Although it was very delicious, he wasn't full, so he was a little discontented. Fool around? Irina's gaze turned cold instantly, and the temperature dipped together with her. She turned around slowly and coldly asked that old man, "Where is he now?" The old man's expression changed immediately. He had already felt the sudden dip in temperature and the scary aura emanating from that young lady. He said in a shaky voice, I saw Boss Mag go into that little alley in the morning. That isn't the direction back to the restaurant. Why are you so proficient?" In the little hut, Camilla stared at the red rope that was tied around her body in a weird and demonstrative manner. She couldn't help but blink. She had tried so hard, and yet she couldn't even tie Mag's hands up, but he had tied her up completely in an instant. "There is no secret here, only practice makes perfect," Mag said calmly as he took up the black whip that was set aside. He didn't have many hobbies, but this could be considered as one. Of course, this was only the fundamental model. Looking at the black whip in Mag's hand, Camilla suddenly regained her wits. The rope on her body was tied tight. Her ample breasts were compressed, and lines of red were crisscrossing on her snowy long and round legs. Slight electrifying numbness spread from the point where she was bound. That weird feeling made her want to clench her legs tightly. But the intertwining rope forced her legs to spread apart. This made her want to struggle. However, this was an advanced spirit-binding rope. Even though she had a 9th-tier power, she still wouldn't be able to conjure up the magic in her body once she was tied, let alone get out of it. It was a single rope, and so the entire body could feel it when one area moved. She only needed to move a little, and the numbness would get stronger as if dozens of tentacles were sliding across her body. Finally, she couldn't help make a sound. This moan was unbelievably seductive, coupled with Camilla's queenly presence and the way she looked when she was tied up, it was even more intense. Even Mag couldn't help but raise his eyebrows. How could I make a sound like this? Camilla blushed as she felt her mind go blank. She was an authentic sadist, so how could she derive happiness from bondage? This was impossible. Because I have already learned how to, release me right now. It's my turn to tie you up. Camilla pressed a like for her wits and smoothness as she commanded Mag with her chin slightly raised, her queenly presence on full display. "Ha, stupid bat!" Mag laughed at her in his heart before he looked at the black whip in his hands and shook his head. "No way. Although I don't know why the Countess knocked me out and dragged me here, as a normal human being, there is no way I will release you at a moment like this. Or else, I am worried I will not be able to walk out of here today. I still have to go back to cook for my lovely customers." He had already looked at his watch. He had missed the lunch service perfectly during the time he was out. Since he had nothing to do, even if he went back now, he wasn't in a hurry. As he grabbed the whip in his hand, a long-lost feeling surged back to his heart and made Mag curl his lips slightly. Smiling, he looked at Camilla, whose curves were displayed fully by the thick red ropes, and said, "Seems that the Countess quite likes these little toys. It's such a coincidence as I like them too. His smile is so perverted. Why am I panicking?" Camilla stared at Mag with a nervous expression. "But," she swiftly consoled herself in her heart, "it's okay. He is just a stupid human. Furthermore, a person like him is at most a perverted masochist. Ah! Don't think you can do anything to me just because you have tied me up. I am an authentic sadist. Even if you whip me, I will not make a single sound. And you, this perverted masochist, will kneel and lick my feet eventually." Camilla raised her chin and looked at Mag sarcastically. "Is being a sadist something to be proud of?" Black lines appeared on Mag's face. Furthermore, just why would this chap think that he was a masochist? He obviously was an authentic sadist, okay. This was also nothing to be proud of. Actually, every masochist staunchly believed that they were a sadist before the whip landed on them. Mag snapped the whip together with his hands as he walked toward Camilla. "Ah! If I make a sound, consider me losing," Camilla said proudly. Smack! The black whip landed on that round and perky butt, and made a crisp and melodious sound. A numb feeling like an electric current dispersed from the area where the whip landed and spread throughout Camilla's body. Her body began to tremble uncontrollably as a blush swiftly appeared on her cheeks. She clenched her teeth and trembled slightly. Finally, she couldn't help but let out a moan. MMM. Chapter 1052. You have changed, Alex. Camilla's face was so red as if blood could ooze out any time. Her slightly narrowed eyes were so seductive, and her chest was rising and falling rapidly. She looked at the man who was holding the whip and standing in front of her with a confused mind. How can this happen? Why can't I control my body? Furthermore, why do I like this feeling? Perhaps I really am a masochist? No. It's not possible. Camilla's psychological barrier began to break down, and her worldview started to become unstable. Too heavy-handed? Mag stared at Camilla, whose actions were a little exaggerated, in a daze. He wasn't a pervert. He just wanted to teach Camilla a little lesson so this countess would stop trying to ambush him, hit him with a club, and drag him into a little dark hut every day. After all, she was a 9th-tier vampire, and his power was only at peak 7th tier. There was no way he could beat her in a fight. As for killing her, he had thought about that before too. However, she still had a black cat servant who had gone missing and most probably knew about this. Given Camilla's status, of course she was not going to die quietly. Furthermore, she had never demonstrated that she wanted to kill him. What amazed him even more was that she actually came up with a weird tactic to prove that he was a masochist and then make him despise himself in front of Miss Gloria. But her actual implementation was a little stupid. It seems too perverted to use a whip. It doesn't match my genteel temperament. Mag gazed at Camilla, who was panting slightly and had a silver of saliva dripping from the side of her lips, and suddenly felt a pang of guilt. He put down the whip in his hands and took up a candle. Wax play was a form of art. Mag lit up the candle sincerely and walked toward Camilla. Camilla stared at Mag, who was walking toward her. Although her heart resisted, her body began to tremble uncontrollably, and she even started to imagine how the red-hot candle wax would feel when it dripped onto her body. It's so shameful. But why do I feel a little excited? Only that little candle light was left in Camilla's eyes as she swallowed her saliva. Camilla was tied up by a red rope. Mag was approaching her with a red candle, in a little dark hut. Everything seemed so erotic. Boom! Right at this moment, the door of the little dark hut burst open and became countless splinters as a strong wind blew into the room. Mag used his hand to block the wind so that the candle wasn't extinguished. He looked at that dancing flame and sighed a breath of relief. This shouldn't be my concern right now. Mag suddenly remembered something as a chill swept over him from his back. His eyes immediately widened as he turned around. At the doorway, a woman who was wearing a long white dress and white gauze hat, slowly put down her leg. It looked that it was her who kicked the door into the wood chips that were flying around in the house. Of course, that wasn't the problem. The problem was that Mag had already recognized who this was. Even though she was wearing a white gauze hat, that white dress with gold embroidery and the slender and sexy figure all accentuated the identity of the person. A woman who shouldn't be here at all. The most powerful woman on the Norland continent, the former princess of the Elves, also his nominal wife, Amy's mother Irina. In a dark room, a woman was bound by a red rope using a shameful technique, a man whose clothes were in a disarray, the whip that casually abandoned on the floor and the lit candle in Mag's hand. Irina's face was as cold as frost. That frost began to spread from the doorway into the little dark hut with a deep sense of coldness. Irina narrowed her eyes slightly after giving Camilla a glance. She had even rode on this bat with big breasts in the past before, but now she was trying to steal her man. Mag's lips moved a little as he squeezed out a forced smile. You may not believe me if I say this. We are just rehearsing the script. Oh, men. Irina glared at him and the candle flame blazed instantly. A drop of red candle wax flowed down the candle and onto his hand. He let out a surprised shout as his hand shook and threw away the red candle. Mag could sense Irina's chilling face even it's behind the gauze. However, this explanation. Even he couldn't bring himself to believe it. A person barging in suddenly had also given Camilla a shock. If someone saw her like this and word got out, her reputation would be damaged. If Miss Gloria knew about this, Camilla couldn't bear to think about it. She was embarrassed enough to know that she was a masochist, and if Gloria found out about that too, she would never be able to hold her head up high in front of her again. Camilla raised her chin, and proudly said, "Hey, woman, let me tell you this. I am only demonstrating the actions for him. He is my plaything. Don't be mistaken." The spirit-binding rope had restrained all her magic, and at the same time it had rendered her unable to find out who the intruding person was. She could only vaguely sense something familiar. "Shut up, stupid bat." Irina took out a wooden folding chair and bam, the chair sent Camilla, whose mouth was wide open, flying. She got embedded into the wall and fainted with her eyes rolled backward. "How dare you play with my man?" Irina said coldly. Mag stared at the lone remaining leg of the chair in Irina's hand and Camilla who was stuck onto the wall, and his Adam's apple shifted. Hell hath no fury like a woman scorned. But is this the scene of a busted adultery? Mag panicked slightly and felt a weird sense of shame at being caught in action. Wait. Wasn't I the victim who was hit by a club and dragged here? Mag suddenly felt something was amiss. Even though this looked like a SM scene, he was truly a helpless and innocent victim from the start. Mag tried his best to shake the wood chips off his head naturally as he asked Irina, "What are you doing here? You have changed, Alex." Irina removed her gauze hat and stared into Mag's eyes. There were no hysterics, only a disappointed look. But it made Mag's sense of shame even stronger. "This is not what you imagine," Mag tried to explain. "You are so naughty." Irina frowned slightly as she flicked her finger, and the black whip on the floor dropped into her hand. Mag felt like escaping, but he couldn't move a single step as he remembered the difference between his and her power. He didn't kneel on the spot, because his legs were scared stiff. Smack! The sound of the whip landing on a body reverberated throughout the little dark hut. "Ah! Ah, you have changed indeed." Irina threw the whip onto the floor and looked at Mag, who had welts all over his body. Her tone of voice became gentler after she vented her anger. A slightly flushed Mag stood up straight as she put down the whip. He was still that real masculine man. He calmly said, "Everything we see is a perspective, not the truth. The truth may not be what you think it is. After so many years, don't you know what kind of man I am?" Irina looked at Camilla, who was stuck on the wall, as she shook her head, and said, "You only accepted passively in the past, but now you have picked up the whip and the candle. And you even learned such complicated binding techniques. Whose clothes are you wearing now?" Mag felt like crying. He was the victim, obviously. "Okay. But I am really innocent. I went to the Dragon Islands this morning, and when I got back, I detected someone was following me. I wanted to draw her out, so I turned into the small alley. Then, I was knocked unconscious and dragged here. If you say so, you are still that passive masochist. If you want it to be, in this case, I guess yes." Irina stared into Mag's eyes for a while. Although there was a hint of helplessness in his eyes, he never shifted his gaze away. It was as pure as before. "All right, I will give you a chance to prove yourself." Irina pointed at Camilla. "Kill this bustabat. This is not too good, right?" Mag looked at Camilla, who was stuck on the wall in a weird pose. Although this countess had weird thinking, she didn't deserve to die according to her recent actions. Mag coughed softly with a wise look, and said, "She is Countess Bartoli and has a high status in the vampire tribe. Killing her will definitely cause a big hoo-ha. Furthermore, she has a black cat servant who most probably knows about this. But it has gone missing now. If this incident gets out, you mean this ugly thing?" Irina went out of the door and threw an unconscious black cat at Mag's feet. "Mag," the awkward silence continued for a while. "Have you eaten? If not, I'll go back and cook you a bowl of noodles," Mag said gently to Irina. "I don't want noodles. I want to eat steak." A sparkle lit up in Irina's eyes. "All right, I'll make it for you." Mag nodded as he stepped over the black cat and went toward the door. Irina gazed at Camilla on the wall, and an ice blade appeared in her hand. However, the ice blade quickly shattered into shards and lay on the floor. She put on her gauze hat before she turned and walked outside. "Hey! 100-year-old virgin!" Mag, who was standing by the doorway, heard Irina's murmur, and he curled his lips. This was indeed an old virgin. However, he was relieved that she didn't kill her. He didn't develop feelings for her because they were playing SM. Camilla was a regular at the restaurant, after all. He would feel bad if she was killed because of a misunderstanding. They strolled toward Mamie restaurant, with Irina following Mag about 10 meters behind. Mag found a corner to put on another piece of clothing. The clothes he had on were shredded by Irina's whipping. He would send out an odd message if people saw him like that. Irina stopped when they passed by the magic potion shop. A hint of surprise flashed through her eyes. Mag, who just reached the restaurant, turned, and made a silent gesture to Irina swiftly. He knew Irina and Urian were old friends, but he didn't want a third party to know about the relationship between him and Irina now. Irina pondered for a while, and then she continued on to the restaurant. Mag heaved a sigh of relief before he took out the key to open the door. It was already 2 in the afternoon, so the restaurant should be empty. Ding! A quiet chime sounded when Mag opened the door. "Mr. Mag!" A surprised voice sounded, and before Mag could regain his wits, a figure with golden red hair already threw herself at him. She leaped into his arms immediately and intertwined her sexy, long legs around his waist. "Blah, blah, blah," Gina said a bunch of words in indecipherable fish language. Even though Mag couldn't understand her, he could feel her worry from her facial expression and tone of voice. If it was during usual times, Mag would struggle for 2 seconds before accepting the concern from his employee. But now, he could already feel the chill at his back. "What's going on today?" Why does the slaughter field of a love triangle keep popping up? Mag moaned internally. Ah, server Gina. I am okay, I didn't get killed. You don't have to worry about me, Mag explained cleanly before Irina took out a little chair. Apart from untangling Gina's legs, he also got some distance in between them. Irina put away the chair that she had just pulled out. Her judging gaze landed on Gina's bosom for a moment before narrowing her eyes. Hers were even a little bigger than hers. She shifted her gaze downward. Because her top was shorter, her fair and flat tummy was exposed. There even was a pearl embedded at her belly button. It looked rather enticing. Shifting her gaze further downward, under the short skirt were straight, long legs covered by black stockings. Only a server. There was disbelief in Irina's eyes. Let's go in first. Mag quickly went in. Family matters were best settled at home. Who is she? Gina had only noticed Irina, who was following after Mag now, and there was a hint of confusion in her eyes. But, she still gave her an innocent smile and held the door for Irina to come in. Who is she? Why is she in this restaurant? Irina was sizing Gina up too. She didn't understand a word she was saying earlier. It was neither the common tongue of the continent, nor was it another species' language. Gina is a mermaid and she teleported into the restaurant. Because she couldn't stay away from seawater, we decided to keep her in the restaurant as a server and made a huge fish tank for her. Her job is to pacify the children of the customers. Mag rapidly made the introduction the moment he stepped in. Because of the language barrier, she likes to express herself physically. That hug earlier was a body language that she often used to show her welcome and concern. Nice to meet you, I am Gina. Gina extended her hand to Irina with a smile and greeted her using the continent's common tongue fluently. Holy moly! Could you not contradict me like that? Mag's expression was frozen instantaneously. Nice to meet you. Irina glanced at Mag as a smirk appeared on her lips. She, too, extended her hand to shake Gina's hand gently. She, Mag felt his throat was a little dry and he didn't know how to explain himself at that moment. She really is a mermaid. She almost died of dehydration when she first teleported over, Mag said laughingly, pretending to be relaxed. Oh! A mermaid who could spread her legs. Irina smirked coldly. Suddenly, Mag felt a little guilty and cautiously said, she had evolved. After eating my beggar's chicken, she learned how to breathe on land, and can also maintain her human form for a longer period of time. Irina didn't reply, but instead asked, where's little Amy? Her facial expression softened the moment she mentioned Amy. Amy has gone to Chaos School to learn magic from Krasu, Mag quickly answered. His heart suddenly constricted as he wondered what Amy had written in her notebook. If Irina knew about it, the punishment waiting for him could be more than just kneeling on the washing board. Irina nodded slightly. She already knew Amy was learning magic from Krasu, so she changed the topic. Where's Firis? Where did you put her up? Firis is a server at the restaurant. She's in charge of processing the ingredients and learning to cook certain dishes from me. She also takes care of Amy occasionally. Did you tell her your identity? Isn't it easier for people to discover your identity by keeping her near you? She doesn't know who I am. Furthermore, her identity has been whitewashed so nobody will suspect me. Mag shook his head. He was rather confident about this. Then, he asked Irina, however, is the elves issue settled? Why did you come here? Irina sat down on a chair, and calmly said, I have started a revolutionary riot among the elves. All the elves that betrayed the Wind Forest and joined us will become night elves. We shall endeavor to overthrow the rule of Wind Forest, abolish the family system, and create a new elven paradise. Overthrow the rule of Wind Forest. Mag listened to what Irina had said casually and felt a quiver in his heart. Even though Irina had said it very casually, the difficulties and dangers within were beyond his greatest imagination. Challenging a deeply rooted system usually required a drastic social change as the base, otherwise, it would not be successful. I am hungry. Irina raised her head and looked at Mag with a pout. There were neither complaints, nor too much blaming. As he looked at the woman who always maintained her strongman persona in the public but was now showing her soft side to him, Mag felt his heart melt at that moment. I will go make you the black pepper steak now. See what else you want in the menu and I will make it for you too. Mag turned around and went into the kitchen. Okay, Irina answered, and started to flip through the menu. Mag came out with a glass of water as Irina closed the menu, and asked, what else would you like? Irina took the glass over and had a sip. Smiling, she said, only children make choices. I want everything. Everything. Mag raised his eyebrow. He nodded when he saw the tiredness in Irina's eyes. All right, I will make each and every one of them for you. All right. Irina nodded. She put down the glass and looked toward the staircase. You and little Amy live upstairs. Yes. Mag nodded. He believed he didn't have weird stuff that he had to keep away from her, so he replied, you can go upstairs to have a look if you want to know little Amy's living environment. I quite like this place. From today onward, I will be the boss's wife. Of course I should see the place that I am living in from now on. Irina stood up and went upstairs. Boss's wife? We are indeed short of one. A smile appeared at Mag's lips as he went into the kitchen. There was only one customer for that afternoon, but she was the most important customer ever. Irina reached the second floor. The floor was laid with original wood with gentle lines. The door of the room near the staircase was open, and there was plenty of strange stuff inside, but judging from the sizes, they should be Amy's toys. They almost occupied the entire room. There was also a swing next to the window. He had prepared a lot of toys for little Amy. Irina nodded to express her satisfaction with Mag as a father. She walked further in, and water splashing sounds could be heard in the room where the door was half opened. Irina peered through the door's crack, and amazement rose up in her eyes. There was a giant crystal fish tank in that room, and in the tank was Gina, whom she had just met. Her long and slender legs had changed into a rainbow-colored fishtail. She was blowing bubbles with her eyes closed, and there was a pile made up of some golden eggshells on the floor at the side. She indeed is a mermaid? But why have I never heard of the merfolk before? Are they a kind of demon? Irina thought doubtfully. There wasn't any information about merfolk in her memory, but this sight proved that Mag had told her the truth earlier. There wasn't a loophole. Irina continued to the next room with a relaxed expression. She pushed open the door, and found a huge room on its other side. There were a pair of big slippers and a pair of small slippers at the doorway. Each had a big, or small, respectively, head of a bear at its tip. In the center of the room was a huge bed. The soft silk blanket made one feel warmth. There was a little bed next to the big bed that had a cute little bear pattern on it. It should be Amy's bed. Irina opened the wardrobe's doors. It was full of all sorts of little skirts and clothes. There were only 3 sets of chef's uniforms and 2 sets of male clothes in the corner of the wardrobe. This is more like it. Irina closed the wardrobe's doors with a smile on her face. She stretched out her arms and fell backward. Her entire body sunk into the big soft bed. It's so comfortable. The warm silk quilt had a comforting fragrance. Her tensed-up nerves and tired body achieved the perfect relaxation at this moment. A helping of black pepper steak was done quickly, and Mag waited for a while. He began to wonder if he forgot to keep something when Irina didn't make her way down after a long time. He went upstairs cautiously to ask her down for her meal. When he opened the door, Mag saw Irina lying on the bed, sleeping peacefully. Seems like she is indeed very tired recently. Mag sneaked over quietly and bent over to cover her with the blanket. Right at this moment, Irina suddenly opened her eyes. She reached out, grabbed his collar and then pulled him down. The soft red lips were warm and moist as if they were a strawberry-flavored jelly. He couldn't help but lick them with his tongue. Irina shut her eyes instantaneously. Her long lashes were quivering, and 2 rosy blushes appeared on her cheeks. Hot breaths washed all over her face, and that warm gentle lips pressed onto hers so tightly that her breathing seemed to be stolen in that instant. Her brain was in a daze, and her body and lips became a little stiff. She didn't know what she should do following that. Soon, she could feel a soft tip of a tongue brushing across her lips lightly. An unusual numbness immediately spread all over and scratched at her heart like a kitten. Then, it slipped into her mouth when she wasn't paying attention. It was taking in her scent without any restraints. The heartthrob at that instant made their surroundings quiet. All they could hear was her moan. A battle of the tongues. One party was relentless, while the other party was utterly defenseless. Suckling, entangling, everything was mesmerizing beyond words. Slender arms went around his waist and interlocked tightly. The bodies that were so tightly pressed together were able to feel each other's heartbeat. As if a century had passed, Mag opened his eyes slowly. He was supporting himself on his arms as he looked at the Irina underneath him. Her face was flushed and her chest was rising and falling gently. Her eyes were tightly shut and her eyelashes were quivering gently. She looked so adorable that his gaze became gentler. At this moment, he wanted to protect her forever. This had to be what the throbbing of love felt. The suffocated sensation began to dissipate. Irina opened her eyes gradually and looked into a pair of gentle eyes. She could hear her heart beating furiously. She only realized after that loving kiss that she could still feel how it was to fall in love. There was a tinge of shyness in Irina's voice as she tried to break up this arousing silence. Gruel and untimely stomach growling sound continued the conversation for her. Mag curled his lips and teased, "Do you want to eat the steak, or do you want to eat me? You are so naughty." Irina gave him a push and flipped over. She took over the control and pressed Mag underneath her. Looking into his eyes, she warned, "Remember, I have to be the one who initiates this kind of matter. Bring it on. Consider me losing if I make a sound." Mag stretched out his arms with a fearless expression. "You're shameless." Irina snorted in her heart. The door was still ajar, and there was a bubbling mermaid next door. She still had an image to maintain. She leaped onto the floor agilely and walked out the door as she pretended to casually say, "I shall let you off this time. I'm hungry and I want to eat good food." Mag got out of bed too. "Okay, I will cook for you," he said to Irina with a smile on his face. Due to the short make-out session, the black pepper steak had gotten cold. Thus, Mag made another helping for Irina again. The steak was still steaming when it was cut open, and the red meat juice and red wine oozed out. When she sent it into her mouth, she felt the delicious taste of the tender beef melting away in her mouth. "It's heavenly." Irina's eyes closed slightly. Her face was slightly flushed due to the alcohol and a blissful smile was plastered across. Mag gazed at Irina who was enjoying her steak with a smile on his face too. At the same time, he was planning the dish's cooking sequence. Tofu pudding, beef kebabs, Peking duck. Tofu pudding needed to be prepared in advance. If he started now, it would be ready in time as the dessert when she was about to finish her meal. "This roast beef kebab is delicious. Give me 5 more for every flavor. Peking duck tastes good too. Pack up one for me to take away later. Oh! This Rugiemo is powerful." Mag brought out delicacy after delicacy, and Irina's praises and shouts of amazement reverberated in the restaurant. Even Mag couldn't help but be amazed by her appetite. 1 helping of black pepper steak, 30 beef kebabs, 1 whole Peking duck, 2 Rugiemos, 1 whole spicy grilled fish, and that was only the beginning. Phew! I think I am getting full. Irina put down the drumstick's bone as she heaved out a breath and revealed a happy smile. She hadn't eaten any cooked food ever since Firis left, and when she was fighting the ghost's aura with the Tree of Life, she only depended on the Tree of Life to supply her with life force. The current situation of the Night Elves was not optimistic. Just the problem of food was enough to give her a headache. Furthermore, this was the time where the shortage of fruits was the greatest. Many elves were starving, and as their leader, she naturally gave all her food to her people. She only drank dew to suppress her hunger for the past 3 days. And today, she had tasted the most scrumptious food in the world and she stuffed herself. This feeling was simply too blissful. A warm and comfortable room, endless good food, and, Irina looked at the side profile of Mag in the kitchen. That sexy lips reminded her of the kiss earlier, and a blush crept up on her cheeks. And I can live together with little Amy. It's a place where I don't want to leave. Mag came out with 2 bowls of tofu pudding. He placed them down gently in front of Irina as he smilingly said, "We have one last item, the tofu pudding. There's a savory and a sweet version, which one do you prefer?" The aroma of the tofu pudding greeted her. It was refreshing, and it got rid of the greasiness she felt after eating a whole beggar's chicken. Irina stared at the 2 tofu puddings. The one on the left had golden red syrup drizzled over it, and it looked tantalizingly sweet. The one on the right was drizzled with orangey red sauce, and had salted vegetables and spring onions scattered in the center. Although I want to eat both of them, I can only finish one right now. So, I pick the sweet one. Irina shifted the sweet tofu pudding in front of her. She took a spoon to dig into the tofu pudding covered by the golden red syrup. The spoon left a white hole in the tofu pudding, and then the red syrup flew into it. The tofu pudding covered by syrup shook slightly in her spoon, delicate like a piece of art. "This is beautiful. I didn't expect you to be able to make such pretty food. No wonder nobody suspects you," Irina said with a smile as she put the tofu pudding into her mouth. The delectable tofu pudding almost melted as soon as she put it in her mouth. The syrup was so thick and delightful, and it came together perfectly with the tofu pudding. She couldn't help but close her eyes. The tofu pudding was sweet, but not too sweet. After she swallowed, the pleasant taste remained in her mouth. She opened her eyes and stared at the bowl in front of her. She brought another spoonful into her mouth, and another. She was eating it with mounting happiness. Mag opened his mouth, but he could only say one word. "All right." Irina disappeared from the restaurant. Mag gazed at the empty restaurant, feeling a little desolate. Right at this moment, someone knocked on the door. Mag went to open the door, and Yabimia's, Elizabeth's, and Ferris's eyes all lit up when they saw Mag. "You're back, boss!" Yabimia cried in surprise. Both Elizabeth and Ferris heaved a sigh of relief too. "We have almost searched the entire Chaos City. We thought you had an accident. Why did you disappear without a word?" Yabimiya had a tinge of reproach within her concern, as if she was lecturing a child who ran away from home. Mag could sense their worry, and felt warm in his heart. Smiling, he apologetically said, "I went out to do some errands today. I thought I could be done by noon initially, but I didn't expect to be delayed. I failed to inform you guys in advance and brought you worry. It's okay, as long as you are fine." A smile appeared on Yabimiya's face swiftly before she pointed to Ferris. "Do you know, when you were not around at noon and the customers were lining up, Ferris saved the day with her beef kebabs. The customers were all praising her after eating them. Seems like Ferris's beef kebabs are good enough. This is really wonderful news." Mag looked at Ferris with laudation. Irina's personal servant indeed had a remarkable talent in cooking. "Mr. Mag praised me." A blush crept up Ferris's pretty face as she stammered, I have only learned a little of boss's techniques and that's all." Yabimiya walked in, saw the stacked up plates, and said in a surprise, "Why are there so many plates out here? Did we have a customer?" The plates were all different as they were used to hold different dishes. Furthermore, all the types of plates they had were on the table, which meant all the dishes on the menu had been served. "Oh! I was hungry when I just returned," so I made myself something to eat, Mag said laughingly as he picked up the savory tofu pudding and ate 2 mouthfuls. Speaking of it, he was indeed a little hungry. But, that's a lot of food, Yabimiya still thought it was a little weird. Mag walked toward the kitchen with the savory tofu pudding, and at the same time told Firas, we need to start preparing the ingredients for dinner service now. The customers who came at noon are most probably not very pleased. We'd better prepare more ingredients for tonight so more customers would be able to have their dinner, all right. Firas swiftly followed him into the kitchen and began prepping the ingredients according to Mag's instructions. Okay, seems that boss is really hungry. Yabimiya didn't continue to ask any more, and began to clear the table. The headquarters of Grey Temple, the Lord of the Grey Temple's meeting room. A figure appeared silently. Roland, who was staring at the map on the wall, suddenly turned around to look at Irina, who just appeared in the middle of the meeting room. Slightly taken aback, he said, "Princess Irina? What are you doing here?" Smiling, Irina said, "Can't I miss my old friend and come to visit you? Little Grey, it's only been 3 years. Don't tell me that you can't recognize me, your old friend." Roland's mouth twitched. If his subordinates heard that nickname Little Grey, they would laugh hysterically. This actually didn't match his identity as the Lord of Grey Temple, but that person was Princess Irina. Even the city lord was given the nickname Iron Muscle Man by her. What could he do? "You shouldn't have the mood to visit me, this old friend. Aren't you afraid something might crop up in the forest while you are gone?" Roland asked Irina, slightly exasperated. "That old witch Helena and that idiot Borg are busy snapping at each other now. They wouldn't have anticipated that I would leave, and I will be only gone for a short while." Irina shrugged nonchalantly. "I heard you have obtained an underground cavern from the goblins. Seems like you are really serious this time. It seems like the relationship between Chaos City and the goblins is closer than I imagined. I have just obtained that underground cavern today, and you already know." Roland didn't respond regarding the goblins. He asked Irina, "What is your intention coming here today?" "It's not convenient for me to make a trip to the Dragon Islands, so I want to send a notice to them via Chaos City." Irina took out the letter that she wrote in advance and threw it to Roland casually. Roland took the letter and opened it up. A hint of severity appeared on his face. He only spoke to Irina after reading it for a while. "Are you sure that you want to make this proclamation?" "Yes. Are you aware that once this is announced, both Helena and Borg are definitely going to shift their focus on you? The underground cavern is not an impenetrable keep. I want the world to hear our voice and let more elves know about what we are doing now. Violent resistance is within our expectations. Spreading and planting the seeds of freedom in the hearts of elves is our objective," Irina said with a smile. "As for the results, we just have to strive our best for it." Roland stared at Irina for a long time. Finally, he kept that letter solemnly. "If the elves in Chaos City want to go underground on their own accord, I will provide them with the necessary convenience. At least, nobody will be able to sway their decisions." "Thanks. I will make him give you a leeway of 2 streets," Irina said laughingly before a green light flashes and she disappeared. "These 2 chaps are really competitive." Roland shook his head and walked out of the meeting room. After the proclamation from Irina was announced, it triggered a commotion almost as big as the one caused by Mag in the morning. It was news that shook the Norland continent too. On the way back from school, Amy mumbled with dilemma, "Is father home? Where did he go in the afternoon? Should I write down this unusual behavior in the notebook and report to big sister Irina?" Although her face was covered, that woman gave me a familiar feeling. I seemed to have met her somewhere before. Who could she be? Furthermore, what did she mean with her last sentence? Camilla gave her head 2 pats. But, as if it was an edited film, her memory before she fainted only consisted of that woman wearing the white gauze hat and a rapidly approaching chair. "Madam, did that woman come to save Boss Mag?" Maybe he will know something, the black cat said cautiously. That chap. Camilla's gaze landed on the red spirit binding rope on the ground. She was instantly reminded of that humiliating bondage and the whipping earlier. Why did I have such a big reaction? I am obviously a noble, sadist. How could I have reacted to the whipping? Moreover, he is a man, a dirty man. Camilla's heart was entangled into a mess. Whatever happened today had changed her consistent style and understanding. The bondage that resembled a tortoise shell, the slapping sounds of the whip landing on her body, the bright red candle. All these seemed to have opened the door to a whole new world for her. Madam, should we go and look for him now? The black cat asked cautiously. No, Camilla shook her head decisively. I am a little tired today. I will go and sort things out with him tomorrow. She felt her legs were aching and sore after being bound for a long time. She just wanted to go back and lie down. She wondered if that woman was still with Mag. She wasn't afraid of her, but if she went in her current condition, she would most likely be smacked unconscious by a chair again. That would be too embarrassing. All right. The black cat heaved a sigh of relief. A long line began to form in front of Mamie Restaurant again. The furor of the domination of the rankings incident had died down quite a bit by then. However, people were still talking about it. But as compared to the doubts in the beginning, many people had become fans instantly after trying the delicious food at Mamie Restaurant. They started to defend and speak out for Mamie Restaurant on their own accord. This made Mamie Restaurant's reviews go up vertically. Moreover, many customers went to try the food based on the rankings, and had in fact found the delicacies that were hidden amongst the many restaurants. This made the trustworthiness of the delicious cuisine rankings, which was highly doubted initially, increase greatly. It began to become an important guide for many people to find good food. The high pricing of Mamie Restaurant had stopped many customers, but there were still many affordable and delicious good foods on the rankings that were highly sought after by the food lovers. On the second floor of the Sith restaurant, the restaurant manager looked at the long line forming outside, and agitatedly said to a thin middle-aged man wearing a chef's uniform, "Boss, we haven't even started operations, and there are already so many customers lining up out there. And they all specify that they want to order our freshwater seafood soup. Finally, more people know about our restaurant. This is worth your persistence in making the best freshwater seafood soup all these years. The river's surface has frozen over for the past few days, and it is getting increasingly difficult to catch the freshwater seafood. We have to go and negotiate with the fishermen tomorrow. Even if they hike up the price, we have to ask them to catch the fish by chiseling through the ice. Otherwise, our customers will be disappointed if they fail to get the freshwater seafood soup," the thin man said smilingly. "Boss, may I suggest that we go and buy some farmed freshwater seafood secretly? Anyway, there is not too much difference taste-wise," the manager continued in a hushed voice. "Fishing by chiseling ice, those fishermen are definitely going to demand an exorbitant price. If we don't increase the price of the freshwater seafood soup, I'm afraid we might even incur a loss. No way. Using freshly caught freshwater seafood is our tradition as well as signature. Wouldn't we be smashing our own signature by using farmed freshwater seafood? We cannot do such a thing." The boss shook his head decisively and determinedly. There wasn't any room for negotiation. The manager tried to speak, but soon gave up. After a while, feeling unconvinced, he said, "We have been consistently improving and persisting for 10-odd years, how could that Mamie restaurant have won over us? I heard that dish isn't even a soup dish, it is a dish with some soup in it. Isn't it obvious that they deliberately pushed it up to the first spot? Since the rankings placed our freshwater seafood soup at the spot number 2, it already indicates that the current judgments were rather fair. That Mamie restaurant must have its unique points that make it able to dominate all the 6 rankings. If he is truly capable, I have nothing to say. I simply cannot stand those people who used unscrupulous means to get to the top spot. We are just one step away from the peak." The manager was still not convinced. He said, "Boss, let's go and challenge Mamie Restaurant. We will snatch back the top spot of the soup rankings open and above board." This matter, that boss was a little hesitant. Of course, he cared about the rankings. He had spent so many years improving and guarding his heirloom freshwater seafood soups recipe, and they were finally noticed due to the delicious cuisine rankings. Although there was only one ranks difference between the first and the second, they held totally different meanings. "Father, where have you been this afternoon? Little Amy is very worried about you. Furthermore, we didn't have lunch to eat. Although we ate the beef kebabs made by Big Sister Bean Sprout, we are still so hungry." Amy, who ran into Mag's arms the moment she came in, asked softly with a judging look in her eyes. "I was running some errands, but I couldn't get back in time. I will make delicious food for Amy tonight," Mag said with a smile. "Okay, okay." Amy nodded. Her eyes lit up instantly when she heard about good food. Mag looked at the long line outside, but he didn't see Irina. Anyway, she should be still full after eating so much in the afternoon. After the busy dinner service ended, Mag waved goodbye to the ladies at the door. Then, he scanned the surroundings at the doorway, but Irina wasn't there. He was a little disappointed. "Father, whom are you waiting for?" Amy asked Mag curiously, hugging Ugly Duckling. "Yup. I am waiting for a person. She should be coming." Mag nodded. He decided to wait inside since he couldn't see her out there. Besides Firis and Gina, there are still quite a few other women. A 8th tier frost dragon, a 7th tier elf, a 7th tier spatial magic caster, a half dragon, and a little elf. They are all your service staff. Should I praise you? A slightly jealous voice spoke out behind him. Chapter 1058. It should be fine for us to sleep together, right? He would never find another restaurant with such a service staff lineup in Chaos City, or even in the entire Norland continent. In fact, it was rather bizarre. Moreover, every one of them was a pretty young lady, except Shirley. But, frankly speaking, there were not many young ladies who were prettier than Shirley. As a restaurant owner recruiting a batch of service staff like them, he couldn't really say that it wasn't bizarre. What should I do? Panicking, waiting for advice online. Mag's forehead began to sweat. Big Sister Irina. What are you doing here? I missed you so much. Amy threw Ugly Duckling aside and launched into Irina ecstatically. She struggled to get her face out of her bosom and gazed at her in shock and wonder. Irina's gaze, too, softened as she hugged Amy. Smiling, she said, "Of course, I came to see little Amy. I haven't seen you in 2 months and you have grown taller. And prettier too. That part resembles me." "Really? Will little Amy be as beautiful as Big Sister Irina when I grow up?" Amy asked in a surprise. "No. There will only be one as pretty as me." Irina shook her head. "Ah." Amy glared as she felt her young heart was hurt. Mag raised his eyebrows. He didn't expect she would say harsh things to Amy too. Irina could sense that Amy was hurt. After pondering, she smiled and consoled, "It's all right. Even though you won't be as pretty as me, you will be prettier than other people." "Okay, that's good. When I grow up, Big Sister Irina will be old, and I will be the prettiest." Amy had a smile on her face again. "Hey!" Irina glared. She didn't expect the little one to stab her using age as a knife. They are indeed biological mother and daughter. Looking at the two of them hurting each other, Mag's lips curled up in a smile. He felt a sense of unusual warmth. Mag opened the door and smilingly said, "It's cold out there. Come on in." Irina carried Amy in with her. Ugly Duckling looked at Irina apprehensively from the side. It wanted to get close, but it was afraid to do so. The door closed, shutting the coldness out there too. "Are you hungry?" Do you want to eat something? Mag asked Irina. Irina gave it some thought before replying, I want to eat grilled fish, beef kebabs, and one more beggar's chicken. That's all for now. All right. Mag nodded and went into the kitchen. Father only asks big sister Irina if she wants to eat, but you didn't ask little Amy. I am not your little precious anymore. You don't love me anymore. Amy pursed her lips, feeling aggrieved. Mag turned around and looked at the jealous little one. Smiling, he asked, then, does little Amy want to have some supper? Father will cook anything you want for you. A smile appeared on Amy's face. She hugged Irina's arm, and happily said, I want the same as big sister Irina. I am going to eat with her. You are so precious. Irina pinched Amy's cheek. All right, I will make them for you too. Mag nodded and went to the kitchen. After Mag went into the kitchen, Irina smilingly asked Amy, Little Amy, in our 2 months apart, did your father sleep with any big sisters? Kiss them? Hug them? Or did he suddenly disappear in the middle of the night? Were there weird sounds coming from the adjacent room? Did he receive weird letters? Amy ran to the counter to retrieve a little black book as she smilingly said, Oh! I have a notebook that recorded all these. A gorgeous mother and her adorable daughter were flipping through a little black notebook. This scene of a loving pair of mother and daughter was so warm and beautiful. However, Mag's hand holding the cleaver shook when he saw this scene from the kitchen. The book that Amy had in her hands was a real death note. He had no idea what Amy wrote there, and before he could confiscate it, it was already in Irina's hands. This time, I should be dead meat? Mag moaned in his heart. It was his fault for not anticipating the sudden arrival of Irina. He hadn't even bribed Amy yet, he was totally defenseless. Pretending he didn't know what was going on, Mag came out with the grilled fish and said, There's nothing interesting in there. Let's eat the grilled fish first. He tried to peep into Amy's notebook out of the corner of his eye. He had to prepare in advance to complete his lies as much as possible. Smells so good. Irina shut the book, and surprisingly didn't act up. There was even a hint of a smile on her lips. OSH*T. This is too scary. Could she be planning something big? Or she is going to finish me off after she has this meal. Mag blinked as he glanced at Irina, who was picking a piece of fish with her chopsticks and placed it into Amy's bowl. He couldn't read her thoughts, so he got even more panicked. He would rather she flared up like a storm. At least he didn't have to be perturbed like this. You are not eating? Irina asked Mag, who was standing next to the table rigidly as she ate a piece of fish. Yes, father. You should have some too. Amy sucked in a strand of rice noodles and shook her body happily. Okay. Mag sat next to Amy stiffly and stared at the mother-daughter duo eating happily. He didn't know what they were thinking, so he decided to just give up, and began to tuck into the grilled fish. Forget it. Even if he was going to die, he would die after he was full. After eating the grilled fish, Mag went to grill a big bunch of beef kebabs. Irina bit into the beef kebab as she said to Mag, I want to drink beer. All right. Mag went into the kitchen to get 2 big mugs of beer. He put one in front of Irina and one in front of himself. He had seldom drunk after coming to this world, but tonight he wanted to drink with her. They were eating the fragrant and spicy beef kebabs coupled with the icy cold beer. It only took them a few bites to finish the kebabs. The beer was swiftly finished and topped up too. Irina's face was flushed after drinking 3 big mugs of beer continuously. She raised the mug against the light and smiled as she looked through the transparent amber-colored beer. This beer is so nice. It's almost perfect when it's coupled with this beef kebab. Mag gazed at the adorably drunk Irina and clicked his mug with hers with a smile. He softly said, Cheers. Cheers. Irina raised her mug and downed her beef in a few gulps before letting Mag refill for her again. Irina finally put her head on the table and dozed off after drinking quite a number of mugs of beer. Amy, too, slept on her lap. Phew, she's finally drunk. Mag heaved a sigh of relief. After drinking so much beer, even with his drinking capacity, his head was also spinning when he stood up. However, what do we do now? Where should she sleep? Mag looked at the drunk Irina and felt his head ache a little. After thinking for a while, he decided. It should be fine for us to sleep together, right? Chapter 1059. Getting into a bed is such an exciting experience. The family of 3 as a unit in this small house gave him an unexplainable peace of mind. But he was very aware that this scene could at most last one night. Since Irina had already begun in her journey to rebel against the Wind Forest, she definitely had to leave. He was still far from able to defend and take care of her with his current capabilities, and he couldn't make himself say out the words to make her stay. System, if I need your help to overthrow the rule of Wind Forest, how much money do I need? Mag asked silently in his heart. It's not enough even if I sold you, the system said disdainfully. Mag raised his eyebrows. He was only asking casually. The system seemed to have many restrictions dictating its interference. It definitely couldn't interfere with this matter, as it would affect the whole continent. Mag stood next to the bed and looked at them for a while before he tucked the blanket tightly around them. Then, he went down and got him busy in the kitchen again. An hour later, Mag placed a big takeaway box on the first table next to the staircase. Then, he wrote a note and pasted on it. Mag changed into his pajamas after taking a bath. He stared at the bottle of cologne in the corner for a moment. Finally, he took it up after some hesitation. Amy is my daughter, Irina is Amy's mother. In this case, there should be no problem for me to sleep in the same bed with her, right? There are only 2 beds in this room. The small bed is too short that I can't even fit my legs in. The big bed is the only choice. Besides, this is my house, my bed. Mag stood next to the bed and mumbled while in a dilemma. Meow. Ugly duckling who couldn't get onto the bed stood next to Mag's feet and meowed at him pitifully. All right, ugly duckling. You can sleep on the little bed, and I will sleep in the big bed. It's settled. Mag made his decision instantaneously. He grabbed Ugly Duckling and put it on the little bed. Then, he lay down at the peripheral of the big bed gently about half a meter away from Irina. This is the first time I feel that getting into a bed is such an exciting experience. Mag lay as straight as a salted fish and stared at the ceiling. He could sense the figure lying close by and feel his heart throbbing away. Mag used deep breathing to adjust his emotions and calm himself. Although he wasn't an inexperienced young virginal lad, Amy was lying on the bed as well. Of course he got to try to be a saint. After a while, Mag still didn't feel sleepy, so he turned his head to look at Irina. A gleam of light came in through the window and the soft silk blanket had a tantalizing curvature due to the bosom. The straight perky nose, tiny mouth and the profile were still as mesmerizing as before. Mag just lay there quietly and watched. His emotions began to calm down, and he began to feel sleepy. But, just as he was about to close his eyes, Irina, who was supposed to be asleep, opened her eyes and turned over to face him. Am I nice to look at? And nice, Mag answered subconsciously. Then, he realized she had woken up suddenly despite being drunk. Before he could do anything, Irina suddenly stretched out her arm and pulled him over into her bosom. Mag was stunned for a moment as he felt the softness and warmth against his face and the body pressing against his. What was going on now? He raised his head to look at Irina. She seemed to be asleep again with her eyes closed and her breathing stable and peaceful. If he wasn't pulled over and lying atop on her softness comfortably and smelling her sweet scent now, he would really believe that he had been hallucinating earlier. Was that an unconscious behavior? Mag thought suspiciously. Irina's arm was still on his body and was hugging him close. He was envying Amy earlier, and now he, too, was enjoying the same bosom pillow's benefits. He would take things as they come. Mag closed his eyes comfortably. He sought a comfortable angle, feeling rather entitled, and dozed off peacefully. That was how an experienced man should behave. Those men who pretended to move around and pretended to be shy were the real perverts. One loved one in each arm. I am indeed the biggest winner. A smile appeared on Irina's lips. She also fell asleep hugging Mag and Amy in each arm. In the second half of the night, Irina suddenly opened her eyes and gazed at the sky, which was slowly becoming bright beyond the window. She looked at the two people sleeping on the bed, feeling reluctant to leave. She lowered her head and kissed Amy on her forehead. Then, she stared at Mag's face for a while before she kissed him on his lips with a blush on her cheeks. She released the two of them gently, and appeared next to the bed in a flash. I guess I will be able to hack through those chaps very soon. I will come back and stay with you then, Irina said quietly before she turned around and walked out determinedly. Just as her figure disappeared at the doorway, Mag, who was supposed to be in deep sleep, opened his eyes and clenched his fists tightly. He quietly said, I will go and look for you very soon. Very soon. Irina saw the big box on the table next to the staircase the moment she went downstairs. There was a piece of paper on the takeaway box. Only a simple sentence was written on it, bring it along for your journey. What's this for? This chapter. Irina laughed out, but a tear sparkled at the corner of her eyes. Wait for me to return. If you dare to seduce other young girls, I will kill all of you. Early next morning, Mag saw the line of words written in a scrawl on the piece of paper left on the table. His eyes couldn't help but twitch. Was it his fault that he had a seductive face? However, he kept that piece of paper carefully. He discovered Amy's notebook when he was about to place the note into the counter. What kind of scandals did the little one write in there? Irina actually didn't flare up after reading about them? Mag picked up that notebook curiously and started to read it sneakily. Father made me a very delicious rainbow fried rice this morning. We had steak and grilled beef kebabs for lunch. We had the super spicy grilled fish for dinner. We had a great time eating all the food today. Today, Father made a very scrumptious red braised pork, and he helped a poor grandpa draw a portrait to find his lost child. If I got lost, Father would definitely draw a pretty portrait of me, right? Yup, that's for sure. After all, I am so pretty. Today, a big sister mermaid suddenly appeared in the restaurant, and she fainted even before she could say a word. Father and I carried her upstairs to soak in the bathtub. Father added a lot of sea salt into the water so that she could survive. She drank so much salt water. Does it mean that we don't have to add any more salt if we make her into a roast mermaid? This is my real flesh and blood daughter. Mag was tremendously touched by the notebook in his hands. He finally understood why Irina didn't have any adverse reaction after reading the notebook yesterday and even behaved much nicer to him. This definitely wasn't a death notebook. This was utterly a foodie's diary. Furthermore, the little one had successfully shaped him into a kind and principled good man. Mag put the little black book back into the cupboard, and happily said to himself, okay, I will add one more egg for her breakfast today, and I will arrange whatever she wants to eat from now on. Such a wonderful daughter, she deserved to be spoiled. Did big sister Irina and father sleep together last night? What should I record for today? Amy opened her eyes and saw the straw-weaved bird and an empty bed. She thought very hard, but then quickly shook her head. Never mind. Let's think about what I will have for breakfast. Should I eat rainbow fried rice or braised chicken and rice? Early morning. A proclamation that was stuck on the 8 cities gates of Chaos City quickly got the residents' attention, and then spread to all various regions on the Norland continent with a tremendous speed. Irina established the Night Elves in the name of freedom. We swore to overthrow the familial rule of Wind Forest, and set up a real elven paradise. We will not rest until we succeed. There were only a few sentences in the proclamation, but it had caused immense waves. The rumor of a discord among the elves had been spreading for a long time, and after Princess Irina's deposition, the rumor got even more intense. However, nobody had expected Princess Irina to suddenly declare the establishment of a new organization, Night Elves, swear to overthrow the current ruler of the elven race, and use Chaos City to send out her message to the whole continent. Moreover, this proclamation was made just one day after Alex's declaration. Within the short period of the past 2 days, events that shook the entire continent kept popping up. This reminded people of Alex and Irina's past relationship. A few years ago, people would definitely be reminded of the other person whenever one of them was mentioned. They could be described as the spokespersons of fierce. There wasn't a place where they didn't dare to venture on Norland continent, and no one whom they didn't dare to beat up. 2 10th-tier powerhouses at their peak. Alex, who had unrivaled swords skills, and Irina, the goddess with unparalleled magic, finally returned. Even though the two of them didn't form a team this time, their news still managed to shake up the entire continent. Wind Forest. In a great hall, Borg looked at the letter he had just received in his hands with an angry expression on his stiff face. He sent the table in front of him flying with a kick, and furiously said, "Irina, that *tch. How dare she go to Chaos City to say that she's going to overthrow us? Gather our troops. I am going to destroy her and those traitors personally today. My lord, the High Priestess's side is watching us. It is not very wise to send out our troops now," an elf said hesitantly. "Shut up. Helena, that witch, must be tempted to kill Irina now too." Borg clenched his teeth and smirked. "We are about to sign the peace treaty soon. If we cannot eradicate these traitors as soon as possible, the elf race would be at a disadvantage in the negotiation. That old witch would never allow that to happen." Within the starry cave, Helena was also looking at the letter in her hands. An eerie blue flame rose up and burnt that letter into white ash. "I thought you are a smart person, Irina. But looking at the situation now, I guess I was wrong. Your stupidity is already incurable." Helena gazed at the brightest star at the top of the cave with furrowed brows, and said, "Since this is the case, for the elf race's benefits and future, I have no choice but to kill you. If the queen could ever come out of her retreat, I believe she would understand me too." The great magic caster trio of Chaos City gathered again. "What do we do this time?" The elf race had already descended into chaos. This has already become an unstable cause, and the negotiation has not even commenced. Isn't this a good thing? Their internal conflict would take away the most of their attention and energy. If they couldn't squash this rebellion quickly, then they wouldn't be able to make any strong demands on the negotiation table, Michael said with a smile instead. Indeed. Given Princess Irina's capabilities and Alex backing her up behind the scene, plus the complex underground cavern provided by the goblins, this elven rebellion should be able to last for quite some time. It even has a certain probability to succeed. This isn't a bad thing. Novan also nodded smilingly. The way you two described it makes sense too. Roland nodded as he pondered a while after listening to them. Since this is the case, in order to make Irina's Night Elves' resistance last longer, we have to do something too. As long as there are elves in Chaos City who want to join the Night Elves voluntarily, we will allow them to go to the underground cavern. At the same time, we can provide them with food and battle reserves and supplies through the goblins. At least, this would make sure they wouldn't be eradicated easily. Would this weaken our power? If it gets to the point when our Chaos City has to join in the war, this addition or deduction of power would already be negligible. Leader of the Night Elves. She took on such a huge burden. This woman is so nonchalant, Mag mumbled to himself helplessly after hearing about the proclamation early in the morning. She didn't say a word about such a big issue to him last night. It seemed like she didn't want him to get involved. However, given his current capabilities, he indeed couldn't give her any help now. Furthermore, he would add on to her burden if his identity was exposed and he became everyone's target. Night Elves. The princess. She is fine. Moreover, she is going to overthrow the forest's rule. Phyrrhus rushed to the city gate immediately after she heard the news. She looked at that proclamation with reddened eyes, and was so agitated that her whole body was trembling. This was the first time she heard about the princess after she arrived in Chaos City. The princess must be in need of me now. Without me, she might not have a full meal. I have to return to her. Phyrrhus's gaze became determined very swiftly. She turned and walked toward the restaurant. I am sorry, Mr. Mag. I may have to resign, Phyrrhus said to Mag, who was tying on his apron, the very moment she entered the restaurant. Resign? Phyrrhus, are you all right? Why do you want to resign suddenly? Mag looked at Phyrrhus, feeling a little shocked. They had gotten along quite well for this period of time. Although this last didn't like to talk, she was both a fast worker and a fast learner. Going with her current speed, she could be a chef on her own right soon. Actually, there is something I didn't tell you before. Phyrrhus peered at Mag with a hint of hesitation in her expression. He found it a little funny how he was the one who brought this lady over to Chaos City, but now she was feeling apologetic for not coming clean about her identity. However, it seemed that Phyrrhus had also seen the proclamation, and that was why she was so anxious to quit and return to Irina's side. She knew that it was dangerous, but she did not hesitate at all. Mag was a little touched by that loyalty. The situation the Night Elves were in right now was indeed pessimistic. They were a rebellion group that was formed in a short span of time. On top of that, most of them were slave elves with meager powers. Their fight to overthrow the deep-rooted might of the wind forest was akin to ants trying to move a tree. I've also heard some things about the elves and Princess Irina. I will not stop you if you insist on going back to help her. Mag looked at Phyrrhus. Irina really needed someone who could take care of her. However, before we leave, I want you to ponder over 2 questions. Do you know where to look for the princess? If you really find her, what help can you be of, or will you become a burden instead? Phyrrhus opened her mouth. She thought for a while and shook her head in despair. The princess is definitely not in the wind forest anymore. I don't know where to look for her, either, but I think I can take care of her. She doesn't know how to cook, but is very picky about her food. She would rather starve than eat things that she is not used to. Mag recalled how Irina finished all the dishes on the menu on her own yesterday. He felt a little upset. Phyrrhus was right, Irina had to have not had a proper meal in a very long time. If you want to take care of her, or be of a certain use in the rebellion army, I think you should master faster and more culinary techniques and dishes. The food that you used to make is too delicate. One dish is only a mouthful. It's not suitable as a source of energy for the army during the war. If you're willing, I am going to teach you how to make Yongzhou fried rice and rujiamo. For the time being, I will help you find out where the princess is. You can go anytime once we are certain of their location and are sure that they are safe, Mag said seriously as he looked at Phyrrhus. Irina was the one who slept beside him last night, and his heart would of course ache for the mother of his child. If it were not because the situation did not permit it, he would have gone to the front lines to cook for her. Although Phyrrhus was a very outstanding student, if she was willing to cook for Irina, and he would feel more at ease so naturally, he would not force her to stay. Mr. Mag, Phyrrhus looked at Mag with tears welling up in her eyes. He was simply too good to her. He was actually willing to do so much for her. Other than the princess, no one had ever treated her like this before. Mag saw the tears glimmer in Phyrrhus's eyes, and thought that it was because he sounded harsh. He quickly said, "If you're in a rush to leave now, I can go over to the city lord's castle to ask. They might have some news." "No, Mr. Mag, you're right. I should become a useful person, and not just a burden for the princess like how I made her worry for my safety and was of no use at all the last time. Ferris shook his head. She looked at Mag with resolution. Please teach me how to cook. Mag smiled. Nodding, he said, sure. Then we will start from this morning's rest time. I will teach you how to make Yongzhou fried rice first. Ferris nodded hard. Mr. Mag. I might have to quit. If I were to leave this time, I hope you can help me take care of Anna for a period of time. If I don't make it back, I hope you can take good care of her, Shirley said with a solemn expression to Mag. She arrived at the restaurant earlier than usual today. She glanced at Anna, who was playing with Amy and Ugly Duckling. You're leaving too? Mag raised his eyebrows. It was a surprise to him, but he had expected it. Shirley and Sally were both noble descendants of the Elves, and Mag was very clear about that. However, they were a little different from those Elves who were interpolated into the hierarchy. They once fought for the freedom of the Elves at the bottom of the hierarchy, and Shirley adopted Anna. Irina's proclamation was actually a call for enlistment to the Elves in the Norland continent. A fight for freedom. What a real and noble motive! The Elves who had been oppressed, the Elves who yearned for freedom. When they saw that proclamation, they would probably be burning with passion. Yes, my people need me. Shirley nodded without any hesitation. Mag looked at Shirley. This elf who looked even more beautiful than most women had currently risen in rank in his heart. You can set off anytime. I will take care of Anna. She will have everything Amy has, Mag said with a nod. Thank you. Shirley smiled. She looked around the restaurant, and said, this is a farewell. Please help me say goodbye to the rest. Mag looked at Shirley and nodded slightly. We'll bid our goodbyes here. Take care. Shirley turned and walked out of the door. Mag looked out. Shirley bent over and picked up Anna clumsily. She whispered some things to her ear, and then turned to leave. The little girl gripped tightly onto the corner of her shirt with her eyes red. Shirley turned her head around with a smile, and said to Anna, I will be back when the war is over. When that happens, I will still bring you up. Anna looked at Shirley and sniffed. She reached her little pinky out. Promise that you will come back. All right. Shirley reached her pinky out and hooked pinkies with Anna. Pinky swear, Anna said seriously. Shirley retracted her hand and raised her exquisite chin with a smile as she said, don't worry, a person as beautiful as me won't lie. After saying that, she turned to walk away briskly and waved while her back was facing the restaurant. Anna looked at Shirley's back view and started crying. What's going on? Why is there so much sand in the wind today? Shirley blinked and quickened her steps. Soon, she disappeared from the square. It's all right, big sister Anna, you still have us. Amy walked over and hugged Anna lightly. She reached her hand out to help her wipe the tears off her face with a smile, and said, I heard that those who are good-looking usually wouldn't die very easily. Big sister Shirley is so good-looking. She definitely won't die easily. Ing watched as Shirley turned around and opened the door. With a frown, he said, last night, the chief sent me a secret message to bring you back. Do you also think that what they are doing is right? Shirley said without turning back, her hand on the door handle. I don't know about what is right or wrong. What I know is that if you go, you will die, Ing said. I know that you know. Shirley pulled open the door, and the sun cast a glow on her. I will work hard not to die. Shirley smiled and walked out. Ing raised his hand holding the magic staff and lowered it slowly. At last, he let out a heavy sigh. If I were 100 years younger, I would probably walk down the same path too. Freedom, being young. Take care of the child. If I don't make it back this time, tell her that her father died for freedom. This is the soul of the elves. A middle-aged elf carried his luggage and kissed a little elf who was still asleep. The female elf who was watching with her eyes reddened gave him a tight hug, and said, "Come back alive. Our child and I are waiting for you." That elf hugged her back tightly and whispered softly by her ear, "Take good care of yourself. If I don't make it back, find a nice guy and live on." "No, I'm only waiting for you." She shook her head hard very resolutely. Similar things were happening in the different areas of Chaos City. Some of them were high officials in the Grey Temple and City Lord's Castle, and some of them were shop owners in Aiden Square, while others were just workers in small workshops south of the city. However, because of one proclamation, they put everything down, carried their bags and their bows and arrows, and started the journey towards the Wind Forest. They left the Wind Forest back then precisely because they did not like the restrictions there. Now that Princess Irina had started a rebellion, they were willing to give their all for the forest of their memories. In the restaurant, Mag looked at the group that had already arrived and tried to remain calm as he said, "Shirley left. She told me to bid farewell to all of you on her behalf." "She will be coming back," Anna said softly. Her eyes were still red. "Why is she just like Sally?" Leaving without a word, Yabimiya said with devastation. The others were also a little down. Everyone had gotten along well during this period, and they complimented each other quite well at work too, so now that Shirley had left abruptly, they felt somewhat reluctant to part. "All right, let's have breakfast first, then prepare for our opening." Mag smiled and stroked Anna's head. He said to Elizabeth, "Elizabeth, I need you to take over the cleaning roles since Shirley is gone. Can you do it?" Elizabeth nodded. She did not appear very affected. "Then I'll leave it to you." Mag nodded. With her 8th tier powers, it was a waste to have her only do a little cleaning. "I must make my feelings known to Miss Shirley today. I hope she will be able to understand my feelings for her with this diamond ring," Constantine thought nervously as he stood at the front of the line with a small, exquisite box held tightly in his hand, trying to look into the restaurant. Although Miss Shirley did not seem to have expressed much interest in him throughout this period, at least he was seen every day and had become a familiar face. The torture of longing for her day and night felt like a roller coaster ride. He could no longer continue like this. He had to make his feelings known to Shirley today. Be it acceptance or rejection, he just wanted a conclusion and not elusive hope. In the midst of the anxious wait, the restaurant doors opened slowly just as usual. Boss Mag stood by the entrance and greeted everyone with a smile. "Good morning, welcome to Mamie Restaurant." The restaurant staff stood on both sides of the restaurant's aisle. Constantine soothed his clothes and walked towards the door, past the familiar faces, but there was no sign of Shirley. "She's not around?" Constantine was dumbfounded. The crowd moved in, and he moved along into the restaurant with the crowd. He looked around the place, including the kitchen, but did not see Shirley anywhere. "Boss Mag, where's Miss Shirley? Why isn't she around today? Is she on leave?" Constantine asked Mag, who was about to go to the kitchen, nervously. "She quit and left." Mag looked at Constantine. This man who insisted on coming to the restaurant every day to please Shirley could be considered the restaurant's regular. "Quit and left?" Constantine's face changed. The exquisite wooden box in his hand fell, and a purple gold diamond ring dropped out. The gem shimmered as light was reflected in it. After recovering from the shock, Constantine did not care about the ring. He quickly grabbed Mag as though he was his last lifeline, and nervously asked, Then do you know where she went?" "She did not say, but I think she probably left Chaos City by now." Mag shook his head. "Left?" Constantine let go of Mag's hand as though he was suddenly sucked out of all his energy, and he walked out depressedly. For some people, the moment they turned around, it became farewell. He suddenly felt a little regret. If only he had mustered the courage yesterday. Even if he were to be rejected. He was once a man many women chased after. He had wealth and looks. However, in front of him, he was just like someone chasing after the light, hiding miserably in the shadows. When Mag picked the ring on the floor up and lifted his head, Constantine was already out the door. Although I can't congratulate him, I can't really say much. It should be bliss to be unaware. Mag looked at the ring in his hand and put it carefully back into the small box. He'd better return it to him on another day. He should be feeling terrible today. After the morning operation hours, Mag started teaching Firas how to make young Joe fried rice. This was actually not a simple dish of fried rice if one was to go into detail about the cooking procedure, the size of the flame, and the technique of stir-frying. Luckily, Firas was indeed quite talented, and as she also liked to stand at the side to watch Mag quietly when he cooked, she was able to get the hang of it very quickly. System, I want to use a lucky draw chance. Mag lay on the lounge chair outside the restaurant, sunbathing, when he tapped on the lucky draw wheel. The past 2 days had been too exciting that he almost forgot that he still had 2 lucky draw chances. Mag so happy, the system sounded, and the names of dishes flashed on a big red wheel. It was not like in the past where there were set dishes on every section of the wheel. Top tier recipe? What's that? Mag could not help but be curious. It was the first time he heard that. Were the recipes that the system gave him previously all considered low-tier ones? There is no ranking when it comes to delicacies, but in this world, the effects each dish brings to its consumer could be ranked. Young Joe fried rice is able to provide energy and boost recovery to a certain extent, similar to a recovery potion, so its effects are considered low-tier ones. Tofu pudding has beautifying and scar-removing properties in it. To women, it's akin to giving them a new life, so its effects are considered middle-tier ones. Beggar's chicken has a certain ability to allow sea creatures to breathe on land, so its effect can be considered to belong to the top tier, but because of its specific target consumer and the need for a certain amount of coincidence, overall, it could only be considered a middle-tier one. Those that had left its mark on the history of delicacies, being able to provide a strong effect on most of its consumers, are considered top-tier dishes, the system replied. It works this way too? Could this be the legendary Azadi's tincture Toria 1? A Chinese herb? Mag pondered. The system's ranking was very simple and clear. It was just based on the effects of the dishes. The more powerful its effect, the higher its tier. However, this ranking based on effects also differed from people to people. For example, Rigiamo should be considered a top-tier dish to the Burning Legion, but when a normal person ate it, they would only gain a little strength without that much of an effect. A top-tier dish that had a strong effect on everyone really raised his expectations. Mag was expectant. He rubbed his hands together and got ready to spin the big wheel. There is no need for the host to be overly excited. This time, only a very limited number of top-tier recipes is available. The chance of the host drawing a top-tier recipe is 3%. The system very quickly extinguished his excitement. F***ck. Mag suddenly came to his senses. He thought for a while, and asked, System, what are the chances of getting thanks for your participation? 30%. System, fish you. Fish you. Block. Block. Mag rubbed his glabella. The chance of getting thanks for your participation is 10 times more than that of obtaining a top-tier recipe. That's so depressing. After taking 2 deep breaths to calm down, Mag looked at the big wheel and used his consciousness to spin it. The red wheel spun furiously, and the words on the spaces of the wheel also flashed furiously. What would it be? Mag watched on nervously. The wheel started slowing down, and the words on the wheel also became clearer. Pan-baked pork fillet, big plate chicken, pork stewed with cellophane noodles. Just looking at them made Mag swallow his saliva. What familiar names! Just thinking about them would make one swallow their saliva. However, the blank spaces also made him a little worried. There were quite a few blank spaces. If he were to get a blank space, all his efforts in doing the missions would be gone to waste. The wheel came to a slow stop under Mag's intense watch. Yueshao and soybean milk set meal. Mag blinked. After confirming that he did not make a mistake, he asked, "System, is this a top-tier recipe?" "It's the first time I saw a set meal." "No," the system replied calmly. "Soybean milk and yueshao. I'm really very unlucky." Mag sighed. He looked at the other recipes on the wheel and felt a little complicated inside. This yueshao and soybean milk set meal was the simplest and lowest tier dish on the wheel. Besides, he did not really like yueshao. He did not think that the oil that was used repeatedly would be clean. On top of that, it was greasy, and when it first came out from the pot, it would be too hot, but after it had cooled down, it would be too tough. However, he would be able to have a few sticks if it was dipped in hot pot. The texture of yueshao when it was blanched in hot pot and taken out immediately was quite good. He was quite fond of soybean milk, but it had to be freshly ground soybean milk. "System, what's the effect of this soybean milk and yueshao?" Mag asked. "Please figure it out yourself," the system answered coldly. "Fine, I'll just take it as an alternative for breakfast. It is quite weird to have fried rice for breakfast every day anyway. Besides, the system's yueshao and soybean milk should be a little different," Mag comforted himself. Although he had a little grudge over not drawing the top-tier dishes, it was already good enough that it was not "Thanks for your participation. I still have one last draw." A problem that cannot be solved with money makes it even more exciting. Mag breathed out and spun the wheel again. The wheel began spinning wildly, and the dish names flashed past. Mag clenched his fists subconsciously as he watched the wheel while holding his breath. The wheel started slowing down, and finally came to a stop. Ding! "Congratulations on drawing a top-tier recipe," Buddha jumps over the wall. "Holy F***ck. Mag bolted up straight and looked at the glimmering words "Buddha jumps over the wall" in his mind. Compared to the usual gold glow, there was also a hint of red, making it even more dazzling. Mag blinked and asked with uncertainty, "System, is Buddha jumps over the wall really a top-tier dish?" Although his luck had always been not bad, the chances were 3%, after all, so getting it felt surreal. Buddha jumps over the wall, also known as fragrance in a pot and fortune and longevity. It is a famous dish of Fujian cuisine. It became famous because of the aroma wafted when the lid is opened. The Buddha forsakes his sutra and jumps over the wall to give it a try. It was said that the owner of the restaurant Zhu Chun Yuan, Zhang Chunfa, created it during the Qing dynasty. As one of the representative dishes of the Fujian cuisine, the taste of Buddha jumps over the wall has been widely recognized, and it even had a high reputation in the soup category. It had become a delicacy that is both delicious and highly nutritious because of the presence of a variety of expensive ingredients used that were still perfectly harmonized. Therefore, the Buddha jumps over the wall is worthy of its rank as a top-tier dish. The system was very serious in its explanation. "All right. I am very satisfied." Mag was already grinning from ear to ear. He had tried it once, but thought that it was mediocre. It was probably because it had not been authentic. But now that the system had given him a recipe that was even an improved version, the taste would definitely not be bad, since it was categorized as a top-tier dish. Of course, what he was more curious about was the special effects this Buddha jumps over the wall, which was categorized as a top-tier dish, had. "Why is Mr. Mag so happy?" Just then, a voice came from behind Mag. "If I said that I am here to have a cup of tea with Mr. Mag, would you agree to it?" Sheer said with a smile. "Since Miss Sheer is already standing here, can I still reject you?" Mag asked in reply, and motioned for her to take a seat beside him. "The weather is very fine today. Why don't we have a cup of tea while enjoying the Sunday?" "Sure." Sheer nodded and sat at the table. Mag went inside and brought out a tea set. He put the purple sand pot over a small stove to boil the water, and added some red tea after that. The tea's aroma wafted out, and just the smell of it was enough to calm someone down. The sun in the winter morning was shining brightly. Both of them sat facing each other, without talking, with a pot of red tea boiling in between them. Sheer watched Mag for a very long time. He merely watched the purple sand pot calmly without even looking at her. She had seen several men, and there were often those who didn't look at her. However, it was because those men were trying to hide their nervousness, so they shifted their gazes elsewhere on purpose, but their shifting gaze very quickly exposed their inner thoughts. Mag, however, was different. His gaze was very calm, and he was very focused as though there was something on that little pot that was looking better than her, so even sparing a glance at her was a waste. She had never met such a man. This fellow is too much. Are my looks really incomparable to a teapot? Sheer felt indignant. Although she did not care about men's gaze, it was still a little uncomfortable to be ignored after getting used to being the center of attention. System, what are the effects of Buddha jumps over the wall? Please figure it out yourself. System, the effects of this top-tier dish are so powerful, would there be any side effects? What if someone falls sick because of it? Please figure out yourself and think about the complementary medi dishes. What's the use of having you? Mag could not help but roll his eyes inside. What was the use of this system when it barely answered any of his queries? This tea is pretty fragrant. Sheer broke the silence. She did not have the patience to sit here with Mag all afternoon under the Sunday hum. It's a good tea. Mag finally ended his conversation with the system, so he naturally replied to Sheer. He picked the teapot and poured her a cup of tea. The aromatic tea was clear and beautifully colored. This tea was Da Hong Pao from Mount Wei, which he bought from the system, so it naturally would be a good tea. He did not have a lot of it, so if Sheer had not requested to have tea with him, he would never have borne sharing it with anyone. Sheer received the small white porcelain tea bowl. The aromatic tea was very palatable, and her eyes lit up. Other than loving red wine, her grandfather also loved tea. Recently, he had been fishing and drinking tea in his leisure time, and she would have some tea with him when she was free, so she had some knowledge of tea leaves. Her grandfather's favorite tea was Assam black tea from the Goblins' Assam Valley. Because of its low production, it was difficult to buy it. A few years ago, because he was unable to buy the black tea, Sheer's grandfather bought the entire Assam Valley and built a tea leaf base where he would plant and harvest it just for himself. Sometimes, he would gift some of it to his good friends. Mr. Mag's tea had a stronger aroma than the Assam black tea. She picked up the tea bowl and blew on it lightly before taking a careful sip. This taste. Sheer's eyes lit up. It had a rich fragrance and a strong, sweet aftertaste. After swallowing the tea, the fragrance would still linger in her mouth and make her feel more spirited. It's a good tea. Even Sheer, who had tasted several good teas, could not help but praise it. Even her grandfather's favorite Assam black tea paled in comparison. Grandfather would definitely like this tea, Sheer thought to herself with certainty. Mag took a sip of tea and put his tea bowl down with a smile as he asked, "Miss Sheer, you're so busy, so I don't think you're just here for tea, right?" Sheer was a strong independent woman who did not come to the restaurant often. She would only appear when she had something she needed to do. The steam train's upgrade is completed, and Burrell had been leading the team in adding some magic spell formation in the locomotive to increase its speed. There was a breakthrough in the progress recently, but we ran into some problems during the practical tests. "I hope Mr. Mag would be able to give us some help," Sheer said as she looked at Mag upgrading the train with magic. Mag was shocked. Sheer apologetically said, "These are not part of what we agreed upon in our cooperation, so I am really sorry that I have to trouble Mr. Mag to help us. I don't know much about spell work, so I might not be of much help. However, I am quite interested in this train that's upgraded with magic. I might not have enough time in the morning, but I can go over to take a look during the afternoon break." Mag nodded. He neither rejected her nor gave her a concrete reply. He was indeed curious about how things would turn out when technology met magic. A train upgraded with magic? Could the speed go anywhere near a bullet train? All right. Someone will come over to pick you up this afternoon. Sheer smiled. After that, she pulled out a piece of paper and put it in front of Mag. This is? Mag asked. This is a contract. I want to hire you to be the overall advisor for this steam train project. That way, I would feel less apologetic if I needed to ask for your help again, Sheer said. Mag glanced at that 7-digit annual pay and pushed the contract back to Sheer. He shook his head with a smile. If I were to sign on this, I would be the one feeling more apologetic if I were to reject you. Is it because you think that the salary is too low? No, I just don't like to be restricted. Mag shook his head. As for the steam train project, I am more than willing to take part where I can be of use if I am free. After all, I can be considered one of the stakeholders. But, the precondition is if I am free. Sheer stared at Mag for a while before keeping the contract. Smiling, he said, all right, then I'll have to trouble you, Mr. Mag. Sheer finished her tea quietly and put her tea bowl down. She curiously asked, I wonder what tea this is? How much do you still have with you, do you mind selling me some? My grandfather loves tea, and I am certain he would like such great tea. It's just some wild tea leaves. I don't have much left, so I can't sell it to you. Mag shook his head resolutely. The system only sold him less than 500 grams, and he even found it too little for himself. How could he possibly sell it? However, according to the system, that was because it was only the first year of harvest. The production of the tea leaves should increase subsequently. He was wearing a full set of black clothes in broad daylight and even had a cap on. All he was lacking was the 4 words I am a spy written on his forehead. An enemy? Or is he eyeing me to make some money? Mag raised his brow. He could sense that the person was a human around 6th tier, and he obviously came for him. Mag could not deduce anything, as there was too little information. The man in black stood behind the tree for quite a while before he pressed his cap down and turned to leave. Mag thought for a while and decided not to follow him. The power of a 6th tier could not even get past the restaurant's automatic defense system, so he was not much of a threat. Since he came to spy in the day, he would most likely take action at night. Mag decided to wait till nightfall to find out what exactly he was up to. In a deserted alley, 3 men in black clothing and black caps gathered. There was a tall and thin man, a short and fat man, and a lean and muscular man. Boss, are you really done spying? We are aiming to make a huge profit. As long as we succeed, the 3 of us will not have anything to worry about anymore, the thin man said. Nonsense, when did anything go wrong when I am the one on the job? As long as Fatty's information about the restaurant having a magical tool that could automatically make delicious grilled fish is correct, we will definitely succeed tonight, Colby said with a confident smile. It's definitely correct. I saw the owner taking out delicious grilled fishes from that black magical tool with my own eyes. The fatty nodded with certainty. He smiled schemingly, and said, the fish was superb, and each fish was sold at 2,500 copper coins, yet there were so many people ordering it. As long as we can get our hands on that magical tool, in the future, all we need to do is lie down and collect the money. On top of that, we can still have delicious grilled fish every day. You're already a ball of fat, and all you can think of is still eating. Colby slapped the fatty's head and smiled. When I am rich, I want to drink the strongest alcohol and ride the wildest woman. 1, 2, 3, when the afternoon operating hours were over, Mag saw Gina counting mud casings happily in the corner. He could not help but ask, Gina, why are you keeping so many mud casings? You can't possibly eat so many of them even if you were to have it for supper too. Gina stared at Mag for a while before she understood his question. She pointed at the mud casings and then at her mouth, and waved her hands to indicate that it was not for her. Then, she motioned out her tail, and said, "Me, people, they, eat." Mag took quite some time before he understood Gina. So Gina was keeping these mud casings for the merfolk just like her. It seemed like she wanted them to have the ability to breathe on land. However, Gina could not even clearly say where she was from, and she did not even know where her home was. No matter how many mud casings she collected, she most probably would not be able to give them to her people. Besides, what Mag was curious about was something else. Wasn't the merfolk living well under the sea? There were no disputes over land, and they led a life of freedom with countless number of fishes to eat. Why would they want to come out on land to vie for survival space with the other species? Big sister Gina cannot speak or write, but she can draw. Why don't you let her draw to communicate? Amy walked over with Ugly Duckling in her arms. That's right, that is a good idea. Mag's eyes lit up. He actually did not think of such a simple way. Children could indeed find the simplest and most effective way. Gina, draw out what you want to tell me. Mag passed Gina a piece of paper and a pen, and then he motioned his message to her. Body language could help them with basic everyday conversations, but complicated dialogue was plainly impossible since different species had different worldviews. Gina's eyes lit up when she saw the pen and paper. She picked up the pen clumsily, and quickly learned how to control her strength to draw lines on the paper without breaking the pen or tearing the paper under Mag's guidance. Gina sat by a table, and everyone in the restaurant crowded around curiously. Everyone was curious about Gina's background, but because they could not properly communicate verbally with her, they could not figure out where she came from, and why she came even after so many days had passed. Gina thought for a while and started drawing. Very quickly, merfolk with a human body and a fish tail started appearing on the paper. They formed a circle around an elevated platform that appeared to be an altar. At the center of the altar stood an old merfolk with a long robe. He seemed to be hosting some solemn and secretive ceremony. Although it was her first time drawing on paper, Gina was surprisingly good at it. She might have left out some details because of the speed she drew it, but the simple lines could still deliver the solemn atmosphere at the ceremony with all the merfolk. There are so many mermaids. What are they doing? Are they praying for food to fall from the sky? Amy sat kneeling on a chair and was filled with questions when she saw the drawing. It does look like a huge tribe of merfolk. Mag pondered. Although there were only a few merfolks drawn on paper, there were a lot of wavy lines that probably represented a large crowd of merfolk. Gina did not explain, and quickly went on to her second drawing. A ray of light appeared above the altar, and a projection appeared in the sky. The merfolk all wore a surprised expression. Could it be a revelation? Elizabeth gasped softly in disbelief. A revelation? Everyone looked at Elizabeth curiously. What's that, big sister Elizabeth? Amy asked. It was said that there were supreme gods living about the Norland continent. The different races pray to different gods. The elves pray to the god of life, the forest trolls pray to the god of strength, the orcs pray to the god of totem. No one had seen the gods, but there would be occasional revelations, so many still believe the existence of gods, Elizabeth explained. Gina could not understand their conversation, so she did not explain further. She moved on to the next drawing. The chaotic images paused on an image of a restaurant, with a young man standing in front of it, appearing on the revelation. Isn't that Father? And our restaurant? Amy exclaimed softly. Everyone was also shocked when they saw the drawing. Isn't it just a slideshow? What's the fuss about? The system muttered. Mag looked at himself in the drawing, feeling a little confused. The distinct black and white uniform, his face with sharp features, that iconic mustache, and the restaurant behind him with the signboard Mamie Restaurant all highlighted his identity. Mag couldn't figure it out, either. This was way beyond the limit of his understanding. He looked at the first picture again. There was a thick darkness above the altar that made people feel suppressed, and the merfolk's facial expressions were full of expectation and hope as if they were praying for the appearance of God. After the revelation appeared, the merfolk were looking at him in the scene with ecstasy, which was similar to Gina's expression when she first saw him. But, what did this have to do with him? No matter how one looked at him, he looked like a chef and not a savior, right? Mag looked at Gina. He wanted to know what happened next, or what the meaning behind this divine revelation was. Gina raised her eyes to look at Mag, and then continued drawing. The fourth picture quickly appeared underneath her pencil. In the picture, Gina appeared. She was standing in a circular teleportation portal. The high priest in black and the middle-aged merman wearing a crown were standing next to the altar. Further away, crowds of merfolk were surrounding the teleportation portal. They were all gazing at Gina in the teleportation portal. Is Big Sister Gina the hope of her whole village? Amy mumbled. It sure looks like it. Mag wondered. After looking at those 4 pictures, he roughly knew why Gina had appeared here. The merfolk were inspired by the revelation to search for the person in the scene, and he was the chosen one that the merfolk were looking for. Gina was chosen as the representative of the merfolk, and she took a ride on the ancient teleportation portal to get here. Very luckily, she had soon met him. A mermaid who could not survive on land, Gina, the merfolk princess, came on land with a one-way ticket without any hesitation just because of a revelation that appeared suddenly. What a stupid idolization! Wasn't it akin to playing her life? Why? Mag asked. He still couldn't understand why the merfolk did that. It was quite nice to live under the sea, right? Why did they have to come up to the land? Gina saw Mag's doubts. She thought for a moment before drawing on the paper again. It was a black screen that hung horizontally above and blocked all light. Merman after merman launched an attack against the black screen. Some fell down after they were injured, and others just died inside the black screen. However, not a single one of them could go through the black screen. Even though it was just a stationary picture, everyone felt a little suppressed looking at it. What is that? Mag asked Gina, speaking slower than usual. Gina put down her pencil and shook her head with an equally perplexed expression, but she quickly took up the pencil again and continued drawing on the paper. The altar activated, and she appeared in the middle of a desert. She was walking carefully on it, with a smile on her face and a gleam in her eyes. Everything she saw had never appeared underneath the black screen. A change of scene, and she appeared in the middle of a barren canyon. That was the location of her second teleportation. Even though her surroundings were barren and she had lost her source of water, her expression was still bright. The scene changed again, and she appeared in the middle of the restaurant. Mag, who was emitting golden light all over, appeared again and saved her like a savior. Maybe I have my own special golden light effects in her eyes? Mag raised his eyebrows and tried not to laugh. A picture of Gina waking up followed after. She still had that blissful smile on her face, but she had a big bubble wrapped around her head which was filled with water. She obviously didn't fit into this world. The scene changed again. Mag, with his own special golden light effects, was holding a little wooden hammer in his hands. There was an egg that emitted golden light in front of him. It's the beggar's chicken. Amy was the first to recognize it. What does it have to do with beggar's chicken? Yabimiya couldn't understand. Gina, most likely, was able to breathe on land after she ate the beggar's chicken, Mag said thoughtfully. He knew about that. As expected, the next picture was Gina eating a piece of mud casing and the beggar's chicken with her hands. The water bubble burst, and Gina discovered that she had gained the ability to breathe on land. In the picture, she opened up her arms to hug this world with a pure smile on her face. Everyone couldn't help but smile with her too. They felt that they were healed by this story. Gina's pencil didn't stop. The scene changed. Under that black screen, Hundreds of merfolk were still gazing upward hopefully as if they were expecting something. Smack! Gina put down her pencil and looked at Mag. Her expression was just like those of the merfolk looking upward under the black screen. There was hope in her eyes too. The restaurant was in complete silence. Everybody's gazes landed on Mag. The silent pictures had depicted the struggles of the merfolk living under the black screen vividly, and all their hopes were directed onto Mag alone. "Father, why don't you make more beggars' chicken for them? They look so pitiful," Amy said adorably with pity. Mag wasn't in a hurry to make his position known. His gaze swept across the pictures on the table. Deducing from the pictures, the merfolk should be trapped at the dark bottom of the sea by some kind of seal or curse. Their location should be deep under a sea somewhere. There weren't any coordinates, nor any specific depth. Although he already had a 7th tier power, he didn't have the ability to deep dive under the sea, nor could he breathe at the bottom of the sea. Moreover, it was impossible for him to make beggars' chickens for them at the bottom of the sea. Even though he did pity Gina, he really wasn't a savior. He couldn't make any promises so hastily. "This place? Where?" Mag asked Gina, pointing at the first picture. "Lantisda," Gina said haltingly. "Lantist." Mag repeated after her. Although he didn't know where this place was, this name might become an important point of breakthrough. There was a knock at the door, and Mia went to answer it. She swiftly called out at the doorway, "Boss, he says he is here to pick you up." "Okay, I am coming," Mag answered. It seemed like Miss Shear's people were here. He kept away Gina's drawings and couldn't help praising her. "Gina, it is a waste of talent if you don't become a mangaka one. Your drawing style and storyboard are both at genius level." "Mangaka?" Gina repeated after Mag as she looked at him perplexedly. "A person drawing manga, that is Japanese comics." "Lantist? What kind of place is that? I wonder where I can find information about it." Mag was still thinking about Gina's story in the carriage. He was sure that Gina wasn't lying, but he had no idea how to get the merfolk out their confinement. "Maybe I can consult Miss Shear later," Mag thought. The carriage went out of the city and continued for over half an hour before stopping. Mag exited the carriage. The location was still that cliff from the previous trip. "Please come in, Mr. Mag," that assistant said smilingly as a tunnel appeared on the cliff. "Thank you." Mag nodded and strode into the tunnel passageway. Behind the tunnel, there was an immensely wide cave. "Mr. Mag." Ural, who was standing at the entrance, quickly came forward to welcome him. He grabbed Mag's hands, and appreciatively said, "Thank you very much for making the time to come here to instruct us. You are too kind. Miss Shear told me you guys have improved the steam engine tremendously. I am very interested too, so I want to come and see for myself too. But I am definitely not here to instruct anybody." Mag swiftly shook his head. "This way please, Mr. Mag." Ural led Mag into the deeper part of the cave as he said, "We have some tentative suggestions, but we encountered problems with practical application. Hence, we specially invited Mr. Mag here to have a look. As the designer of the steam engine locomotive, maybe you could bring us some new perspective. First, please have a look at our results for the past few days." The inner part of the cave had already been cleared, and a black steam train was placed on the tracks. The giant beast with distinct angles looked awe-inspiring under the fire's beams. The tall chimney of the steam engine locomotive was especially eye-catching. There were very thick metal bumper guards at both sides of the cabin. Above them, half-a-meter-long spikes were installed. It looked just a porcupine. Compared to the half-finished product previously, this version of steam engine locomotive was extremely impactful. "We have considered the possibilities of encountering enemies and magic beasts during the journey. So, we have added defensive armor on the exterior of the steam engine locomotive to make sure it would not be damaged easily," Ural explained. "This is quite a good improvement." Mag nodded. Different from Earth, this world had fierce magic beasts. Even though this would increase the weight of the steam engine locomotive to a certain extent, it brought a greater measure of safety. Please follow me, Mr. Mag. Burl walked toward the steam engine locomotive and boarded it. Mag followed suit. Burl opened up the bottom of the cabin's interior, and pointed to the spell work drawn with complicated lines. Please have a look. We added an anti-gravitational magic spell formation at the bottom of the steam engine locomotive. This magic spell formation is normally used by street magic casters to perform levitation. We want to borrow this spell formation to make the steam train levitate and increase the speed of it. Anti-gravitational magic spell formation? Isn't this the alternate world version of the maglev train? Magical levitation train? This high-end magic spell formation actually only needed this little magic spell formation to be completed. 5 black stones were embedded at the points where the lines intersected one another. They should be providing the necessary energy for the magic spell formation. It only took them one step to jump from steam engine locomotive to maglev train. This giant leap that ignored the basic rules of technical developments made Mag raise an eyebrow. But we have encountered a very tricky problem with practical application. Although the anti-gravitational magic spell formation could levitate the train, we couldn't make it run stably on the tracks. Whenever there's a little deviation and curvature, the train will derail and flip over. We have been working on this problem for many days, but we still couldn't find a solution for it. Burl looked at Mag as he scratched his head, and said, Mr. Mag, do you have any opinions on this? Mag rubbed his chin. Can you make the train run for me? Have a look, please. Of course. Burl gave instructions to start the train. Mag alighted and stood slightly further away. The steam locomotive's ignition was much faster than the previous time. They should have done some improvement on the ignition too. The white water steam gushed out and the locomotive began to move. At the same time, the anti-gravitational magic spell formation started to work. The second half of the steam engine locomotive seemed to be grabbed by a giant hand and was lifted up gradually. Except for the first 4 wheels of the locomotive, the wheels of the back had already levitated and left the tracks. It presented an angle of inclination as a whole. Woo! The steam train began to move forward as if it was a train that was held up by a hand. It ran forward quickly and lightly. The ignition speed and travel speed were obviously faster than in the previous testing. It was also much faster than a normal steam train locomotive. Ponderment appeared in Mag's eyes as he looked at the steam train that was vibrating very obviously in its acceleration. He had a grim cast to his grey eyes this day. He already had a rough idea. There was a bend with a very small curvature. The steam engine locomotive began to decelerate right before it was about to go through the bend. It crossed the bend at an extremely low speed, but the body of the locomotive still displayed a very obvious tilt, and there were signs of derailment at the tail end. However, the test driver should have accumulated plenty of experience in dealing with flipping over. He managed to stabilize the train by decelerating. He decelerated and stopped. The progress of the track laying is quite successful, right? Mag asked Burl. Yes. We have completed about 1/3 by now. Burl nodded, not quite understanding why Mag was asking this suddenly. In this case, we cannot make changes to the tracks anymore. We can only make changes on the train. Mag nodded. He walked toward the steam train at the end of the track, and said, Please give me a pen and paper. All right. Burl received the pen and paper from his assistant and quickly caught up. Mag walked around the steam train once as he checked on the wear and tear on the first 4 wheels before asking about the various parameters of the steam engine locomotive. He took the pen and paper from Burl, and started to draw a draft and do the calculations. I heard that he is a cook. Does he really know how to design? He designed this steam engine locomotive, so do you think he knows or not? But he is simply looking around like this. Can he really solve the problem of the train's incapability to make a turn? We had been pulling so many all-nighters to work on it for the past few days. We came up with so many ideas, but none of them could solve the issue. The other engineering staff were watching at the side. Some of them couldn't help but mumble softly in doubt. Mag only raised his eyebrows when he heard their mumbling, but he didn't make any response. Looking at the current situation, I have drawn all the areas that I personally think could be improved here. You may look at it as a reference. Approximately 10 minutes later, Mag stopped drawing and passed the 3 sketches to Burrell. Then, he glanced at his watch, and smilingly said, "I need to go back to cook now." It seemed that Shear wasn't at the base, so he could only come up with the solutions himself. "All right. Thank you for making this trip." Burrell took the sketches and arranged with his people to send Mag back. His gaze was totally attracted by the sketches in his hands. Although they were just sketches, the lines and labeling were still stringent. Burrell was looking at them seriously, and his eyes began to light up slowly. Did he really make any constructive suggestions? All the engineers thought as they looked at Burrell's expression. Those problems had been bothering them for many days, and they still couldn't find any substantive solution, yet Mag found the solution simply by just looking around. Genius! Mr. Mag is really a genius! Burrell praised as his hands trembled with the sketches. An engineer couldn't help but ask, "Chief, did he really come up with a solution to solve the problem of derailing at the bend?" Burrell spread the sketches out on a table and waved everyone over. "Not just about the derailment at the bend. There is also the tilting of the cabin, improvement on acceleration." Mr. Mag's suggestions were all on point. "All of you, come and take a look." All the engineers came forward and studied the sketches on the table carefully. Reduce the energy of the magic spell formation appropriately. Reduce the levitation height of the cabin. Convert the aft wheels of the cabin into side roller wheels that are parallel to the ground. Separating the locomotive from the cabin will solve the tilting of the cabin after it is levitated. The side roller wheels will ensure that the train will not derail, and reduce the resistance to the greatest extent. Moreover, the most important point is that this improvement does not need to change the train tracks at all. The method of separate connection could also be used for connecting the subsequent carriages. This type of connecting method gave them more freedom, and the soft connection could solve the problem of the train unable to cross the bend for being too long. This is probably what people call genius. The engineers got rid of all their previous doubts. There were only amazement and dejection in their eyes. Smiling, Burrell said to all of them, "Since we have the solutions now, let's try to come up with feasible design plans by today. I will get off here. I want to take a walk." Mag alighted from the carriage when it reached the Aiden Square. Lantist. I wonder if Gina pronounced it correctly. Transliteration of location names has a high probability to be wrong. Mag went into an alley to change his clothes and wore a mask. Then, he proceeded to an information center. 10 odd minutes later, Mag came out of the information center with nothing. He continued on to a second information center. Mag had gone to almost all the information centers at Aiden Square, but he still couldn't find any information about Lantist. Either that place doesn't exist on the Norland continent, or it isn't called that in the continent's common tongue. Mag changed back his clothes and sighed. He passed by the Kaysen bookshop on his way back. Mag went in to pick a couple of books as usual. He saw the old bookshop owner lying in a lounge chair when he was making payment. He was always reading a book in this position whenever he visited, only the book in his hands differed. "Boss, have you read all the books in this bookstore?" Mag asked curiously. Hearing Mag, the owner Kaysen put down the book in his hands and sat up gradually. He looked at Mag and nodded. "I have already read this book 23 times. In this case, have you read about a place called Lantist in any of the books before?" Mag asked casually. "Lantist?" Kaysen thought for a while before walking over to the bookshelf. "Does it exist?" The eyes of Mag, who was just asking casually, lit up. He watched Kaysen remove book after book from the shelves with proficiency before returning to the counter. This place Lantist was mentioned in this book once, mentioned in this book thrice, mentioned in this book 5 times, Kaysen introduced them one by one. He is **ing human search engine. Mag stared at Kaysen in astonishment. After listening to the old owner, Mag pointed to that stack of books. I will take all of them. How much do they cost? The owner did his calculations, and said, 15 books. The total is 620 copper coins. Keep the change, please. Thank you. Mag passed 7 silver coins over before leaving with 2 bundles of books. He didn't expect to find the information he needed in the bookshop when he couldn't find any in the information center. Back in the restaurant, Ferris was cooking Young Joe fried rice in the kitchen. The colorful ingredients were flying around in the wok, resembling a rainbow. Anna and Ugly Duckling were sitting in front of the table, flanking Gina, who was drawing. Everyone was engrossed, and didn't notice that Mag had returned. Mag didn't make a sound, either. He stepped forward curiously to take a look. Gina was still drawing the underwater world, but compared to the slightly oppressive style in the afternoon, the stuff that she was drawing now was more relaxed and interesting. She used magic to produce different colors. She colored as she drew, and created colors as vibrant as a watercolor painting. Semi-transparent fishes had a light on their heads. The jellyfishes in a group had their formation broken up by the big fishes. Merfolk was riding on the backs of the fishes, holding tridents in their hands. A strange underwater world was depicted vividly under her pencils. Meow Ugly Duckling stared at the schools of fishes and swallowed its saliva. Gina got a shock and dropped her pencil. Mag bent over to pick it up. Mr. Mag. Gina stood up immediately. You drew very well. Mag smiled at Gina. This girl was indeed a genius at drawing. She had just learned how to hold a pencil, but could actually draw pictures that made people's eyes light up. Gina could see that Mag was praising her. She replied perfectly with the common tongue, thank you. Who taught you the common tongue? Mag asked curiously. He was almost done in by her that day. Big sister Gina is very studious. She will ask us to teach her some common words, and she learns them very quickly, Anna said. So that was what happened. Our Anna is a little teacher. Mag patted Anna's head with a smile. All right, continue with your drawing. I will be reading some books upstairs. Mag brought the 2 bundles upstairs. He put the bundle that he bought on his own aside, and took out a book from the bundle that the owner recommended to him. He sat down and read seriously. Mag spent the whole afternoon reading through that whole stack of books once. The Lost Land. Mag closed the last book with a thoughtful look. However, about 1,000 years ago, everything about Atlantis disappeared as if it was erased from the Norland continent in an instant. Everything, including all the records about it, disappeared mysteriously. All the clues pointed in one direction: Atlantis was already lost, and nobody knew where it was. Gina said she came from Atlantis, and the scenes she drew look like the bottom of the sea. Seems like Atlantis had sunk then, and was sealed at the bottom of the sea. However, they had also obtained the ability to live underwater from this. This plot sounds rather familiar? Mag rubbed his chin with a thoughtful look on his face. Nobody knew where Atlantis went, but Mag found an approximate location of Atlantis before its disappearance. The Boundless Sea. Isn't that close to the territory of the demon tribe? Mag got up to look at the map of Norland continent hanging on the wall of his study, and drew a circle with a pencil on top of the Boundless Sea. It is quite a distance away. I could bring Gina there directly to confirm the location if not for that, but looking at the situation now, we can only consider that on the rest day 2 days later. Mag turned around and went downstairs. He finally had some idea about Gina's origins, but as for how to bring her there, it gave Mag a headache. Ozzy was naturally the fastest, but he wasn't supposed to be exposed. Mag told everyone this piece of information during dinner that night. Amy's eyes lit up in delight as she said, "Wow, then can we help big sister Gina go back home? This is so cool. The boundless sea is so far away. How far do we need to walk in order to get there? Yabimiya said worriedly. Gina couldn't understand their conversation, so she simply sat there and looked at everyone quietly. Elizabeth glanced at Gina. If necessary, I can bring all of you there. That's fantastic. Mag's eyes lit up. He had forgotten that Elizabeth was an 8th tier frost dragon. Even though Ozii was slightly better than her, she was indeed fast enough. Big sister Elizabeth, can I come along, please? Amy raised her little hand and looked at Elizabeth expectantly. Yes. Elizabeth gave a slight nod. Mia looked at Elizabeth with some expectation too. Whoever is interested to go, you can come along with us, Elizabeth said calmly. Hooray! I can finally get out of the city. Mia said excitedly. She had never left Chaos City before in her life. A group excursion seems like a rather good idea. Let's take it as a team-building activity for our restaurant. It is our day off 2 days later, let's depart on that day. Okay. Amy nodded ecstatically. Mag told Gina about the information that he might have found Lantist. Gina stared at the circle on the map in a daze before jumping up in excitement to give Mag a big hug. It's just a possibility. I still cannot confirm that Lantist is really under that sea. Mag disentangled Gina's legs from his waist and prepared her mentally. After the dinner service was over, the ladies all went back, and Gina returned upstairs to her tank too. Mag looked at Anna, who was gazing out of the door melancholically. He walked in front of her and crouched down, placing a hand gently on her head. Don't worry, he will be back. Yes. Anna looked at Mag's warm smile and felt her heart warm up. Big sister Anna, if you are feeling unhappy, come and squeeze Ugly Duckling's chubby face. It's very comfortable to squeeze. Amy carried Ugly Duckling over. Her 2 little hands were kneading Ugly Duckling's face into squares and circles repeatedly. Haha! Anna looked at the despairing Ugly Duckling and released a peal of melodious laughter. She joined in to torture Ugly Duckling. All right. Let's go up to sleep, Mag said to the little ones having a good time. He turned off the lights and brought them upstairs. The fatty poked his head out as he watched the restaurant shrouded in darkness, and whispered, It's already closed for business, big brother. Do we begin now? Let's not rush. Wait a while longer. We came to steal today, so we'd better keep a low profile and not get discovered. Colby stood on a branch and shook his head. Boss is so wise, the thin man praised as he poked his head out of the bush. Colby's expression began to get smug as he smilingly said, After we get our hands on that amazing machine, we'll leave Chaos City for Rodu. I heard the people there are richer and they love to eat. We'll establish ourselves there. Hope appeared on the faces of the fat guy and the thin guy. The 3 of them squatted there for quite a while. The restaurant was totally dark and silent. The boss seemed to have fallen asleep. Let's move. Colby jumped down from the tree and sneaked toward Mamie restaurant. The fat guy and thin guy followed behind him closely. Colby got to the door and pasted his ear against it to listen in. Bam! A knock sounded right next to his ear and gave him such a shock that he sat on the ground. Colby looked at the fat guy who was standing in front of the door with a big hammer. He got up and gave him a kick in his butt as he angrily said, Damn fatty, what are you doing? I am trying to open this door for you, boss, the fat guy said innocently. Scram, you idiot! Colby kicked the fat guy aside. He gazed around and heaved a sigh of relief after making sure that nobody was around. He gravely warned, Idiot, we came to steal. You would have crushed the door if you had smashed the hammer down. Can it still be considered as stealing? It will be a robbery. We thieves don't do such a thing. Yes. Boss is right. The fat guy nodded profusely, but as he looked at the door which didn't even have a scratch on it, he couldn't help but mumble, Why isn't there any damage to the door? It's good that it isn't damaged. Otherwise, you would have to compensate for a door. Colby waved to the thin guy. Skinny, you get this door open. Alrighty. This is my area of expertise. Skinny got a metal wire out from his head and began poking around the keyhole haphazardly. Ding! The defense system detected an enemy invasion. Mag, who had just finished blowing dry the two little ones' hair, saw the surveillance video that appeared in his head. An amused smile appeared on his face. Father, what story are you going to tell us tonight? Amy, who had just changed into her little bear pajamas and was wearing her hair loose, asked Mag curiously. Do you girls want to listen to a bedtime story or play around with a few dumb thieves before you sleep? Mag asked smilingly. One perhaps from his hair. Chapter 1070. A mermaid would sleep in the nude too. Stupid thieves. Amy's eyes lit up, and she immediately grabbed hold of Mag's arm excitedly. Where? Father, where are the stupid thieves? Anna, too, looked at Mag expectantly. They should be trying to get in to steal, Mag said smilingly. He had overheard them talking about some amazing machine. But when did the restaurant ever have any amazing machine? This made him perplexed too. These three chaps shouldn't have any idea about his identity. Otherwise, they wouldn't be so stupid to try to steal from Alex's restaurant. Grandpa said thieves are horrendous people. They are lazy, and are always trying to reap without sowing. They will do anything to steal valuables from people. Anna stared at the three people down there, and angrily said, once, a thief stole the last 10 copper coins we had, and we ended up spending a night sleeping in the snow. Grandpa and I almost froze to death. How dare they steal money from Big Sister Anna? The thieves are indeed too horrible. I want to destroy them with one fireball. Amy said seethingly as a little golden purplish fireball appeared on her palm. The thieves who stole Anna's money may not be the same ones as down there. Mag quickly grabbed Amy's little hand, exasperated, and said, furthermore, we are still in the room. Keep the fireball away first. Don't release it so hastily. Mag didn't like thieves, either, but they were not sure about the three thieves' motive yet. Hence, it was not very humane to simply send them off to heavens with a fireball immediately. Amy kept the little fireball as she asked Mag, then, what should we do now? We can't just watch them steal from us, right? Grandpa said that if we couldn't subdue them, then we should stay away from them, Anna whispered. This is our home. The thieves should be the ones to stay away, and neither are we going to watch them steal from us. Mag shook his head. After some pondering, he said with shining eyes, why don't we scare these thieves off by making our restaurant into a haunted house? It would serve them a lesson too. A haunted house? Both Anna and Amy looked confused. Is it a vampire's house? Amy asked. Or is it a devil's house? Anna followed after. If they were on Earth, both could be considered as haunted houses, but in this world, they were not scary enough. After all, they could always see vampires walking around upside down on the roofs when they were walking on the streets of Chaos City in normal times. As for vampires, Mag was reminded of the vampire countess that he had bound up with the tortoise shell technique. He no longer feared vampires anymore. They are both not. A haunted house is a house that makes one feel scared. It is a house that people scream in fear when they enter. Mag described it after some thought. Amy raised her hand and said, I know. It is a house where the monsters lived in the legends. There will be many brave men going there to challenge them. Teacher Luna told us this kind of story before. But, which one of us looks like a monster? Anna looked at Mag and then looked at Amy before looking down at herself finally. They didn't look scary at all. Oh yes. Big Sister Gina. Amy said as her eyes lit up. If she changed into her mermaid form, which nobody had seen before, and if she put on some weird clothing, she would be very scary. This is a good idea. Mag nodded. They could see all kinds of weird species in Chaos City, but merfolk were indeed a rare species. Gina could even be the only one on the whole continent now. Her sudden appearance at midnight, coupled with some light effects. Her scary index should be rather high. System, can you lend me a haunted house backdrop? One I could use instantly. I will return you after one night, Mag said in his heart. Host, this system is an authentic god of cookery cultivation system. Please do not call on me to entertain this kind of issue that is beyond my business scope, the system said righteously. Why is this an issue beyond your business scope? System, this is exactly part of your business scope. Think about it. If I want to become a god of cookery that everyone looks up to, that means I will have to accept challenges from all the chefs in the world. If my psychological bearing capability wasn't strong enough and I got depressed and committed suicide after I am badmouthed, wouldn't you fail to complete your mission? Mag said with a serious expression. A haunted house is a form of edutainment that can train a person's psychological bearing capability. Don't you think the potential god of cookery candidate should have a go at it? If you say so, what I have said makes perfect sense. Moreover, I will only borrow it for one night, and I will pack it up by tomorrow morning. It will not affect the restaurant's business at all. You can decide what design will suit the horror tastes of this world. If some high-end special effects could be added, it would be the best. We will use the 3 thieves out there as our lab rats, Mag continued for the system. The system was still a little hesitant. Let's agree on this. I will pay 100 copper coins as a deposit first. I don't need you to return this deposit even if I am not satisfied with the effects later. I will take it as my loss. Deal. Ding, 100 copper coins have been successfully deducted. The haunted house is in the midst of designing. The template of the haunted house will be ready in 1 minute. Oh, yes. We can add Gina in as an element, Mag reminded with a smile on his lips. The system was as stupid as before. Mag knocked on Gina's room door. The door was only opened after some time. Gina was pressing the 2 seashells onto her bosoms. She opened her blurry eyes to peer at Mag as she puzzledly asked, Mr. Mag. Mag glanced at the 2 shells that Gina was holding onto with her hands and the wet fish tail. His eyebrows rose up. Shocking. A mermaid would sleep in the nude too. Wow. Big sister Gina is not wearing any clothes. Amy, who poked her head out from behind Mag, said in shock as she stared at the seashells in Gina's hands. Is this really fine? Anna, who poked her head out, asked with worry. Gina became clear-headed instantly when she saw the 2 little ones. She blushed and swiftly shut the room's door. She only reopened it after some time, and she had already changed into the school swimsuit. Gina, we need your help. Mag gestured to Gina. The way Gina looked now wasn't much better than how she looked when she was holding onto the 2 seashells. The school swimsuit is simply the best. Help. Gina was confused. It is like this. Mag brought Gina to the window to see the 3 thieves below. Then, he took out a pen and paper, and started setting up his battle plan. Chapter 1071 Whoa! Boss, why can't I get it in? Add some oil. It still doesn't work. You useless thing. You can't even open a lock. Colby slapped the sweaty Skinny across his head. He went forward to peep into the keyhole himself. The black keyhole was no different from other normal keyholes. He took over the thin metal wire and poked in, but the metal wire was obstructed after a while as if the keyhole was stuffed with something. Who the heck is so shameless to stuff things into people's keyholes? Colby said, feeling rather pissed. He peeped into the keyhole again. It was still black and nothing else could be seen. He had no idea what was blocking it. He tried to poke around with the metal wire, but there was no progress at all. Colby, who was sweating profusely now, threw the metal wire aside, and furiously said, "Fatty, smash the door in." "Boss, Didn't you say we should keep a low profile earlier? How are we going to compensate them for the door if we damage it? Fatty mumbled while keeping his distance. Are you stupid? We will escape after we steal the item. Who is going to stay and compensate? Come over this instant and smash this door in for me. Colby scolded. He then glanced around. Move quickly. The Grey Temple's patrol team will come here very soon. Okay, okay. Fatty swiftly came forward after hearing him. He grabbed the hammer tightly with both hands, and then smashed it against the wooden heart with all his might. Bam! A dull thud. Fatty felt as if his hammer had landed on an iron wall. An intense numbness spread throughout both his arms. Then, a strong rebound force came from the hammer, and threw his huge body onto the ground. Ayo! Fatty couldn't help but shout. He cried in agony as he rubbed his butt. My buttocks! They are being split into halves. It didn't even leave a trace. Colby glared at that wooden door. Fatty had smashed at the door with the hammer using all his might. However, this seemingly fragile door not only didn't disintegrate, but it also didn't have a single trace of being smashed. Even though Fatty had only a 4th tier power, a 1st tier knight could have smashed a wooden door in easily with a punch. There was no reason that Fatty, who was using a hammer, couldn't smash open a restaurant's door, right? Something is not quite right with this door. Skinny stared at the wooden door in a shock too. He knocked on it to make sure it was indeed a wooden door. He was even more confused. Boss, is it possible that an expert lives here? Why don't we just go? Fatty said, a little frightened. Nonsense. How could a chef be an expert? You must have eaten too much lately, and can't wield your hammer well anymore. Let me do it. Colby picked up the hammer on the ground, spread his legs out, and struck a proper stance. He took a deep breath, and then raised his hammer high above his head. He smashed it into the door with all his might. An indiscernible wave of light appeared over the wooden door. The light shield had already blocked the hammer even before it landed on the door. Whoosh! The hammer became a flash of light and flew out in the opposite direction. It crashed into a bush about 100 meters away. Colby's mouth was agape, and he was still maintaining his hammer-swinging pose. Boss, are you still okay? Skinny asked Colby worriedly. Then, he whispered, Boss, this restaurant has a bad juju. Why don't we just go? Let's give up on that amazing machine. Fatty stood up, and whispered, Yes. Even Boss's hammer went flying. And nonsense. Colby straightened his body and hid his numb hands behind his back. As he cleared his throat, he said, My hands simply slipped earlier, or how else would the hammer have flown away? Those things don't exist. What about us? Skinny asked carefully. Of course we should continue. I don't believe a lousy door can keep the 3 of us out. Smash it down. Colby took out a big sword and hacked at the door with it. Fatty and Skinny were both inspired by him, and they, too, took to their weapons to hack at that wooden door. 10 minutes later. Boss! I can't do this anymore. I don't have the strength anymore, Fatty panted heavily as he sat on the ground holding his mace, his clothes soaked with sweat. Me too, Skinny sat down next to Fatty. He threw his axe aside haphazardly as he could no longer feel his hands. Damn it! What kind of wood is this door made of? It is tougher than iron. Colby stared at the door in desperation. They had spent so much time and effort hacking it, yet not a mark was left on it. The 3 of them sat on the stairs, with their backs to the door and sweating profusely. Boss, should we just quit? Yup. Sigh, the 3 of them sighed together. Their confidence had suffered quite a hit by failing to steal from a restaurant. It was an unexplainable sadness. Creak. Right at this moment, the door behind them opened outward gradually. There was a slight gap, and a cold breeze blew out and made the 3 of them shiver. Why, Did it open by itself? The three of them turned around and stared at the unlocked door in a daze. The door that they had tried to open for the past 30 minutes without any results simply opened up by itself? What do we do now, boss? Fatty stood up and gulped. Staring at that door, he felt an unknown fear. He felt something supernatural was hiding beyond the door. Boss, this whole thing has a bad juju. The door that we couldn't open with all our efforts opened by itself. It looks like a trap, Skinny mumbled. Ho ho. I want to see what is so eerie about this place. How dares it play with me like this? Colby laughed coldly. He held up his sword and pulled open the door in one stroke. It was pitch dark behind the door. There wasn't a stitch of light in there, not even the moonlight could shine in. As if the door was the mouth of a giant beast. A cold air blew over and went down their necks. Boss, how about we change the target? Fatty shivered as he pulled on the corner of Colby's clothes. Follow me in if you are my brother. Colby shook Fatty's hand away and went straight into the restaurant. What do we do now? Fatty looked at Skinny helplessly. What else can we do? We can't just leave boss here by himself. Skinny clenched his teeth and leaped into the restaurant with his eyes closed. Wait for me, guys. Fatty shouted and leaped into the restaurant after them. The restaurant's exterior was in utter silence, which was even scarier. Bam! The door behind them shut immediately after the three of them stepped in. Whoa! The three of them stared at the door behind them and shouted softly. Drip, drip, water dripping sounds began to appear. Drip, drip, their surroundings were pitch dark, and they couldn't see anything at all. Fatty grabbed onto an arm and tensely said, Boss, I am scared. There's nothing to be scared of. Colby's voice came from the other side. Even though he tried to sound calm, his voice was quivering. Boss, this place has a really bad juju. Where are you guys? Why can't I see you too? Skinny's voice seemed to come from an even further place. Then, whose arm is this? Fatty was stunned as he suddenly realized the arm that he was holding onto was a little too thin. Skinny was thin, but this arm felt like only bones. Don't be afraid, I am here. A green beam lit up and illuminated a pretty-looking skull. It was smiling and talking to him gently. Fatty blinked and stared at the skeletal arm that he had grabbed. Ghost! A scream rang out. Fatty threw that arm away as he turned and ran. He clashed into a door with a bang and rebounded back. He fell onto the ground with his limbs in the air. The skeleton appeared behind him, and again smilingly said, Here I come, bro. Don't come over now. Boss! Boss, help! Fatty was so spooked that all his flesh was trembling. He shrieked for help as he crawled to the side. He had never seen a talking skeleton in his life before. This was simply too terrifying. Where are you, Fatty? What are you screaming for? Colby's surroundings were still pitch black. He could hear that Fatty was close to him, but he couldn't see where he was. The dripping sounds became faster and faster, and some water droplets began to fall on him as if it was raining. This dilapidated house is leaking. Colby frowned and waved his hands around. A water droplet fell onto his lips, and he poked his tongue out to lick it. It's salty. His eyebrows furrowed. This shouldn't be rainwater. Furthermore, it wasn't raining outside before they came in. Seems like this dilapidated house is indeed quirky. Colby grasped his long sword tightly. He was separated from Fatty and Skinny the moment he stepped in. Even though he could hear their voices, he couldn't sense where they were. Fatty's screams were right by his ears, but he couldn't differentiate the direction that they came from. Neither did he know what had happened that freaked him out. Right at this moment, somebody patted his shoulders from the back. Skinny, you, Colby whirled around, but his eyes widened in an instant. A ghastly pale face appeared about 1 centimeter away from his own in total silence, and they stared at each other. That was a pair of glowing dead fish eyes. The loose hair was as messy as kelp and dripping water onto the floor. A strong stench washed all over him. It smelled like rotting fish, which was nauseating. What the heck is this? Colby was shocked, and he swung this long sword forward subconsciously. That figure disappeared instantly, and the long sword struck empty air. The surroundings were engulfed in darkness again. If it weren't for the lingering stench in the air, the previous scene could seem to have never happened. The water droplets became bigger and bigger, and strong wind began to blow. There was a strong fishy smell in the wind, and sounds of waves could be heard vaguely. Stop all these tricks. Come out and fight with me if you are good. These nonsensical tricks are not skills. Come out. Come out. Colby swung his long sword around haphazardly as he hacked at his surroundings aimlessly, but he didn't hit anything as all his strikes had hit nothing. This is impossible. This restaurant isn't big, and it is full of tables and chairs. How can I not hit anything? Colby's heart sank. At first, he thought these were all illusions created by magic casters to scare away inexperienced thieves, but looking at the situation now, it wasn't as simple as he thought. On the other side, the scenery in front of Skinny had changed. He discovered that he was already sitting in a small boat floating on the sea. The surroundings were pitch black and a storm was raging. The little boat was just like a leaf tossed around on the sea, and it seemed like it could be capsized by the next wave anytime. Skinny grasped the edges of the boat tightly in panic, and shouted, "What? What is this? Didn't we enter into a restaurant? How did I end up in the sea? I can't swim, ayo." Right at this moment, a shout came from above. A fat figure dropped down from the sky with a plop and landed in the boat. He shook up the little boat so badly that it almost capsized. "You are here too, Fatty!" Skinny gasped as he looked at the person who fell from the sky. Fatty, who was badly shaken by the fall, opened his eyes when he heard the voice. He saw Skinny right in front of him, and he hugged him immediately and cried, "Skinny! It's so nice to see you! There was a skeleton chasing me, and it scared the living lights out of me." "Yes. It's so damn terrifying," a frightened voice spoke up right behind him. Fatty's expression froze in that instant. He turned around and saw the skeleton sitting at the head of the boat, patting its chest. F***CKU. Skinny lifted his leg and kicked that skeleton into the sea. Plop, and it disappeared amidst the waves immediately. Fatty spaced out for quite a while before he gave Skinny a thumbs up, and wholeheartedly praised, "Skinny, you are awesome. Give me a hand. My legs are jelly and I can't stand." Skinny retrieved his leg and slumped into Fatty's arms directly. "What the hell was that ghastly thing? It scared the living lights out of me. Help me up." A voice appeared from the sky at this time again. Before Fatty and Skinny could react, a figure had already crashed into them. The three of them lay down in the boat to catch their breath. "What do we do now, boss? How did we end up in the sea in such a small boat?" "A single wave can capsize it," Fatty said desperately. Colby looked at his surroundings and said in a deep voice, "Don't panic. This must be just a magic caster's illusions. As long as we try our best, we will be able to find whoosh." Before Colby could even finish talking, a huge wave crashed into them and drenched them all over. "This water is salty. This is real sea water. We are doomed. This really is the sea. There is water in the boat. Quick, scoop the water out." Fatty and Skinny shouted in a panic, and began scooping out the water with their hands crazily. Colby stared at the head with disheveled hair that just appeared on the surface of the sea, and his face began to twitch. "It's here again. Ha ha ha. This is so fun. Give me 2 more basins of water. I want to splash them again." Amy and Anna were holding onto a bucket each, laughing away happily. The perfect combination of reality and illusion. There weren't real ghosts and monsters, but it created a scarier ambience. Of course, after removing all the special effects, the behavior of the three thieves looked very ridiculous and met Mag's psychological expectations. Mag was especially happy to see the two little Lolitas laughing their heads off with the water buckets. "Let the storm be even stronger," Mag said in his heart. The storm was getting stronger and stronger, and one big wave followed another big wave. The little wooden boat was shaking and creaking so loudly from the waves as if it was going to disintegrate any time. Colby and his gang were holding the edges of the boat very tightly, and letting out high-pitched screams following the boat's swaying. They had totally believed that they were transmitted into the sea and had met a huge storm very unluckily. The three men who couldn't swim. If this boat flipped, they were all going to die. Of course, it wasn't the violent storm that the three of them feared most, it was the head that appeared on the surface of the ocean. The wet hair resembled kelps, and the pale face looked especially hideous in the occasionally flashing lightnings. Two blood-red eyes were staring at them. Strong fishy scent floated over gradually as if there were dozens of rotting fishes surrounding them. "Mamma mia! What kind of ghosts are these? I am so scared." Fatty's voice already began to tremble. Splat! A hand grabbed the edge of the boat that he was gripping tightly. A white skeleton head poked out of the water with an equally horrified expression, and said, "I am so scared too. It's here again." Fatty jumped in a shock. The boat, which was already shaking, rocked violently, and almost turned over. "Don't leave me alone!" That skeleton also screamed and leaped out of the water straight away. It spread out his arms and grabbed Fatty tightly. All the bones in his body were chattering. "Get off! Get off!" Fatty kept screaming and jumping on the spot as he tried to shake the skeleton off, but the skeleton was stuck to him like super glue. He couldn't get rid of it no matter how hard he shook. It would also scream along with him in a shrill voice. Splat! Another soft thud. A rotting hand hung onto the edge of the boat, and a rotting head popped out of the water slowly as it tried to climb up the boat. "Stop moving around, Fatty. The boat is going to capsize. Don't let those disgusting guys up." Colby kicked Fatty back into the boat. He swung his sword and slashed at the rotting corpse, which already had half of its body in the boat, sending it back into the water. "Ah!" Shrill screams were sounding, and all the water ghosts were rushing toward the boat. They were trying to climb onto the boat by pulling themselves up with the edges of the boat. Fear was on the trio's faces. They swung their weapons crazily to kill the ghosts that were closing in. However, these water ghosts seemed to be endless. No matter how hard they struggled, water ghosts still rushed at them from all directions. Desperation and fear overwhelmed the three of them. If they were given the choice to choose again, they would never step into that restaurant. Fatty swung his mace around with his eyes closed as he cried, and shouted, "Mama, I am in the wrong. I know I am in the wrong. As long as I can make it back alive, I will be a good man. I will not steal any more. I will steal nothing at all." Skinny was also crying. He was on the verge of breaking down, hacking the endless water ghosts and being stared at by those bloody red eyes. "Come out and fight with me if you are good. Releasing all these ghosts are not skills." Although Colby was pale too, he was still relatively calm. Only the slight trembling of his hands betrayed the panic in his heart. He had seen quite a lot during his travels all these years. He had never thought he would flop in an unassuming restaurant. Huge waves slammed into the small boat, and endless water ghosts kept swarming toward the boat. Even he wasn't confident that he could leave the sea alive. "Little Amy, wrap that lettuce with kelp before you throw it out. It isn't nice to scare people with a bald lettuce. Anna, turn that fan's power a notch up. Yup, and sprinkle some more chili powder in the direction of the wind." Mag sat in the middle and gave instructions calmly. He was feeling so happy looking at the three stupid thieves struggling on the boat. How dared they come and steal from him? He would teach them a good lesson that it was worth them coming on this trip. The storm began to die down, and the waves calmed down too. A bright moon began to rise up from the sea. The water ghosts let out a scream before diving back into the sea and disappeared. Is it finally over? The exhausted trio slumped in the boat and panted hard. They still had lingering fear. The surroundings were silent. The bright moon was reflected on the surface of the sea and everything was peaceful and quiet. Woli pa 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 la la la, beautiful singing came from afar. The voice was so sweet as if an angel was singing by their ears, soothing their frightened hearts. Who is singing? Fatty raised his head with a bewildered stare. Such a beautiful voice. It must be a beauty who is singing. Skinny stretched out his neck and swayed along with the music. It's coming from that direction. If there is someone over there, we may be able to leave this place. Colby pointed in a direction as he picked up an oar. Leave this place. Fatty's and Skinny's eyes lit up too, and they swiftly picked up the wooden oars. The three of them worked together and rowed in the direction the singing came from. The singing got clearer and clearer. Even though they couldn't understand the lyrics, that melodious singing seemed to have a magical power that made people immerse in it. They just wanted to get closer and closer, even forgetting why they wanted to get close. They didn't know how long they had been rowing when a reef rock protruded out of the ocean's surface awkwardly at a faraway location. A woman was sitting atop of the rock, and she was the one singing. The boat was getting closer and closer, and their gazes had become blurry. They rowed robotically as they gazed at the woman on the rock, mesmerized. Such a beautiful person. Even though her back was facing them, the thin clothes couldn't hide that graceful figure. The singing was so beautiful that even the cold sea water became warm, just like the feeling of falling in love. The shore was closing in, and they could escape from the miserable sea soon. Moreover, there was a beauty who was welcoming them on that rock. She made all the suffering that they had gone through seem trivial. The beauty whose back was facing them slowly turned around under their expectant gazes. It's probably someone who'd drowned turned into a zombie. If you played Witcher, you may know drowners. I figure it's the same thing, more or less. The trio's expressions brightened up at once. Crack! Right at this moment, the little wooden boat seemed to have suddenly crashed into something, and let out a cracking sound. Fatty was the first to react as he cried, "We hit a submerged reef. Water is coming into the boat." A big hole appeared at the bottom of the boat. The sea water kept gushing in, and was soon flooding their feet. The boat began to sink. And, at this precise moment, the singing stopped abruptly. The face of the beauty, who was smiling at them on the reef rock, began peeling off like cracked eggshell, and she transformed into a hideous monster. She stood up suddenly and her lower body changed into a rotting fish tail, revealing gleaming white bones. She revealed her sharp claws, and rushed toward the three of them on the boat. "Fish monster!" the trio screamed at the same time, and all their beautiful delusions were destroyed at that moment. Their sense of fear was even more intense than what they had felt previously. They swung the weapons in their hands at that mermaid subconsciously. Ding! The longsword, mace, and axe broke into halves almost at the same time. The trio stared at the fish tail smashing down at the little boat hard. Bam! The little boat disintegrated instantaneously. They felt as if they were hit by a giant beast when the fish tail hit their faces. The trio felt their heads spinning around before they sunk to the bottom of the sea in desperation. "We are dead meat this time." This was the trio's last thought before they passed out totally. "Am I really that scary?" Gina stood on a table and stared at the trio who fainted on the floor as she shrugged embarrassedly. She removed the mud casings on her face and kept her rainbow tail away. "Okay, system. You can keep the special effects," Mag said in his heart. He turned on the restaurant's lights and looked at the three unconscious stupid thieves who were lying in the middle of the restaurant with a smile on his face. This was even more gratifying than taking things into his own hands. "Ha ha ha! This is so fun! Should we wake them up by splashing them with water and start all over again?" Amy was tempted to have another round again as she carried a bucket with her. "Won't this be too cruel?" Mag raised his eyebrows. He felt a little guilty when the trio were screaming like pigs. No punishment is too cruel for a thief. Anna shook her head determinedly, also carrying a bucket with her. Mag gave it some thought. Anna's words had a rationale too, so he smiled and nodded. All right, you girls do as you please. In the following hour, screams and shrieks were reverberating throughout Mamie restaurant. The hysterical screams made him feel pity and amusement at the same time. All right. That's all for today. You girls should go and sleep now. Mag stopped the two little ones from splashing water and waking up the unconscious trio again as he shook his head. I'm so sleepy. Gina yawned. She was awakened in the middle of her sleep. At first, she thought it was rather fun, but the three were simply too timid. They jumped and leaped around in the room as they shrieked. It was getting increasingly boring. Okay. Amy put the bucket down, still feeling not quite satisfied. Then, what do we do with these three thieves? Should we just bury them somewhere? Anna asked Mag. They have already been punished today, so we don't have to kill them. Let's just toss them out straight away. Mag shook his head with a smile. It seemed like Anna really hated thieves, as a sweet little girl like her wanted to bury the thieves straight away. Mag opened the door and dragged the trio out. He dumped them into the bushes haphazardly before he dusted himself off and went back in. The door shut close. Given the trio's capabilities, they could never breach the restaurant's defense even if they tried their very best. There was no need to pay any attention to them. Okay, let's all go to bed. I will clean up the restaurant, Mag said to the three girls, and made them go upstairs first. Host, are you satisfied with the current haunted house service? If you are, please pay for the props and services rendered. The total is 15,000 copper coins, the system's voice said. It's still okay overall. However, these Western tricks are no match for our great Chinese haunted house. I didn't feel scared at all for the entire time, Mag said casually, shaking his head. Oh yes, bro. Just then, the restaurant's lighting dimmed, and a pair of cold hands was gently placed on Mag's shoulders. Mag turned around, and a hideous skull was smiling coldly at him. Whoa! Mag got a shock as he leaped and landed 3 meters away. Staring at the long-haired ghoul that walked out of the dark like a zombie, Mag quickly raised his hands and shouted, "Stop! Stop! Stop!" It was no longer easy to bluff the system as time went on. It actually let him have a taste of it for himself. The lights came on and everything returned to normal. 299 copper coins for one-time use. I will not pay more. I don't want your props, you can keep them. I will rent from you again in the future. This is a long-term business deal, Mag said, coughing gently. Damn. Nobody bargains like you, host. Didn't we agree about slashing the price in half? You have slashed it about 50 times. The system's angry voice sounded as the lighting began to dim again. Don't attempt to frighten me, or else I will hack your equipment into scraps. I knew very clearly the theory behind all these. Are you able to frighten me? Mag pursed his lips, and calmly said, I will give you one chance to bargain back, but don't try to demand an exorbitant price. I can always reject it if I am not satisfied. The lighting came on again. The system gave a feeble response after a moment of silence. 1 copper more? And, no refund of the deposit. A deposit will not be called a deposit if it isn't refunded. That will be called a prepayment. No way, you have to at least refund half of it to me. Mag shook his head, unwilling to negotiate. Ding, 250 copper coins have been successfully deducted. The system sounded overjoyed as if it had just earned a few billions. Please resume the restaurant to its original condition when you keep away the props. Mag's lips curled as he turned and walked upstairs. The two little ones were exhausted, and were already asleep in their little beds. Mag walked over to cover them with their blankets properly. Then, he changed into his pajamas and lay down. He clicked open the experience bag of Buddha jumps over the wall straight away. A tremendous amount of information flooded into his brain. The amount of information was much more than any of the previous dishes. The dish of Buddha jumps over the wall required 18 main ingredients and 12 supporting ingredients. They were processed individually before they were layered and placed into a Shaoxing wine urn. It took several hours of cooking before the urn could be opened. The meat aroma would then spread all over, and the effect of the Buddha forgetting about his teachings and leaping over the wall would be achieved. Seems like it's not easy to perfect this Buddha jumps over the wall. I have only eaten this Buddha jumps over the wall once, so I guess I didn't sprout any nonsense. Mag mumbled as he pushed open the door for the test field for the god of cookery. Mag found himself standing at the edge of a 100-meter tall wall the moment he opened his eyes. The system's voice followed. A real man will challenge the Buddha jumps over the 100-meter wall. Chapter 1075 You die. He barely maintained his balance on the cliff. He looked at the tiny little at the bottom, and yelled in his heart, "What the hell is this, system? You are trying to murder to your own father. Host, please mind your language. Even though we could really be a father and son, you cannot address yourself as my father whenever you like it." "I am not shameless," the system said seriously. Mag's mouth twitched. He couldn't bear to say the words that came to his mouth. He coughed gently before saying, "Pray tell, what is this Buddha jumps over the 100-meter wall challenge? I came here to learn how to cook a dish properly, why am I challenging jumping over some wall? Furthermore, whose house has walls that tall? Do you think the monks are giants?" Shen Mag November 11, 2016 From our respectable Super VIP member, what kind of rubbish Buddha jumps over the wall? The chefs who are going to learn this dish in the future should experience Buddha jumps over the 100-meter wall so they would know what kind of taste is needed to make a monk climb over a wall before they start on their new job. Otherwise, don't put Buddha jumps over the wall on a signboard and hang it on their door. It's a disgrace. Image can't be displayed, shared, 1.1 million comments, 150,000 liked. 99 A Weibo screenshot appeared in Mag's mind quickly. First comment, the 18th generation disciple of Buddha jumps over the wall, I sincerely wish that you would become a chef in your next life and attempt the challenge of Buddha jumps over the 100-meter wall personally. Liked, 350,000 Second comment, I support the comment above strongly. Liked, 300,000 Third comment, will you still press like if I scold ma wrong? Liked, 250,000 Mag, damn. He indeed had nothing to say. Looking at the hottest comment, Mag teared up. Is he AF *ing prophesier? One has to pay for his sins eventually. Mag finally understood this phrase. About that, system, it was just me being itchy hands after I got drunk. It can't be taken seriously. Let's take this wall down and talk things through. Nothing can't be resolved with a good discussion, Mag said after clearing his throat. He lowered his head and gazed down at that pond at the bottom. It looked to be about 10 square meters, and from the height of 100 meters, it looked just like a little bottle opening. After all, he wasn't a professional diving athlete. Falling from a height of 100 meters, he would become a puddle of meat sauce the very moment he touched down. Even though this was the test field for the god of cookery, and he could save and come back again, given the level of simulation in this test field, the pain he would feel was not going to be discounted. Please complete the mission of Buddha jumps over the 100-meter wall as soon as possible, host. After a 30 seconds countdown, the height of the wall will increase by 10 meters, and the height will continue to increase by 10 meters every minute, the system said seriously. Okay. I will jump. But can you make the puddle bigger? Have you seen anybody dive from a 100 meters height into such a tiny puddle? Isn't this a trap? Mag's eyebrows crawled up his forehead as he stared at the countdown that was already blinking in his head. Host, please mind your language, the system warned solemnly before it continued, after the calculation done by this system, a 3x3 pool is sufficient for the host alone to dive in. A 15 meters depth is enough to diffuse the impact of the host's dive and ensure that the host would not die from the dive. Counting down, 10, 9, 8, the system ignored Mag and began the countdown. Damn! Taking a deep breath, Mag tried to calm himself down as best as he could. He tried to recall the actions of the professional divers in competition that he'd watched before. He closed his eyes and adjusted his breathing. 3, 2, 1. He bent his knees and then took a leap of faith. Tightly closed legs in a straight posture, he did look like a professional diving athlete. Wind rushed by his cheeks as Mag stared at the tiny little pond below. The pool looked bigger and bigger to his human eyes. He didn't sense any problem, and the legendary landing technique of the Dream Team already began to replay in his mind. Then, smack! You die! Mag stood at the wall and blinked hard to banish the memories of him falling to his death out. Then, he yelled, F***CKU, system. Whatever. Counting down, 10, 9, 8, F***CKU. Mag took a leap of faith again, but this time, he didn't choose to land on his face, nor care about having a graceful posture. He would go in with his feet first. He had already thought it through. Even if he failed to jump into the pond, even if he got hurt, he wasn't going to die again. Crack! Your legs are broken. You will not be able to focus on your culinary test on broken legs. Please attempt the challenge again. All the best to you. Standing on the wall the 99th time, Mag looked at the tiny pond below and smirked. He jumped before the countdown could even start. This kind of matter was similar to throwing hoops at a carnival. You most likely wouldn't hit anything if you tried to aim. However, you simply threw them out haphazardly. Smack! You die! The 101st time. Mag came out of the water followed by a huge splash. He tossed his hair and smirked. Hey, it's only 100 meters. Congratulations for completing the Buddha jumps over the 100-meter wall challenge, host. In the light of the host's exceptional performance, the mission of the Buddha jumps over the 150-meter wall experience is unlocked. Do you want to accept it? Ha ha ha, what is that? The wind is so strong today. It's time to learn to make the Buddha jumps over the wall dish seriously. Mag turned and left. What nonsensical experience mission? Did it think he was stupid? The tall wall and pond disappeared as soon as Mag turned around. With the change of the scene, Mag was already standing in the center of a closed kitchen. Apart from having a few extra soup pots and an old ochre-colored Shaoxing wine urn, the kitchen looked as usual. Can an authentic Buddha jumps over the wall really make a monk desert his Zen training and climb over a tall wall? What kind of scrumptious taste is that which endowed him with such courage? Or maybe that monk was a fake monk who indulged himself in wine and meat? Mag thought curiously. Mag took a look at his surroundings before walking over to the refrigerator to check out all the newly arrived ingredients. A few lattices that were added in the fridge had dried abalones, sea cucumbers, shark fins, shark's lips, shiitake mushrooms, dried scallops, pigeon's eggs. 30 ingredients took up plenty of space in the refrigerator. Fortunately, the refrigerator was big enough, and each ingredient only required a tiny space. The natural advantage of the system's automatic replenishing system was displayed to its fullest. Cooking 30 ingredients together at once is indeed a technical job. I hope I can leave here by tomorrow morning, Mag thought as he opened the fridge to take out all the different ingredients.